Right. Good morning and welcome to the public hearing and public meeting of the Landmarks Preservation Commission today, September 10th, 2024. We'll begin this morning by taking attendance. I'll ask our Deputy Counsel John Weiss to call the roll.
Chair Carroll.
Here.
Commissioner Bland.
Here.
Commissioner Chapin.
Here.
Commissioner Chen. Commissioner Chu.
Here.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Here. Commissioner Goldblum.
Here.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Here.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Here.
Commissioner Master.
Good morning and welcome again to our that Landmarks Preservation's public hearing and public meeting of September 10th, 2024. This meeting is being held at our public hearing room at 1 Center Street on the 9th floor. It is also being held via Zoom for anyone who would like to participate remotely. And it is live streamed on our YouTube channel for anyone who would like to watch the proceedings. We're going to begin this morning with a public hearing on an item that the research department is proposing for designation, and then we will move to a public hearing agenda for applications for work on designated buildings. So with that, I will turn it over to Margaret Herman to take us through the research item.
Good morning. Item number 1 is LP 2658, the Jacob Day residence at 50 West 13th Street in Manhattan, Block 576, Lot 15. The item proposed for public hearing is a 3-story Greek Revival style row house built in 1845, which from 1859 to 1884 was the home and business of the prominent African-American abolitionist and businessman Jacob Day. Presenting today is Teresa Noonan.
Good morning. My name is Teresa Noonan. The former Jacob Day residence is a rare surviving. Get that too. Sorry for the technical difficulties. The former Jacob Day residence is a rare surviving 3-story Greek Revival style brick row house built in 1845 for William B. Fash. Jacob Day, a prominent African-American caterer and property owner, purchased the house in 1859 and used it as his residence and place of business until his death in 1884. His heirs continued to own the property until 1896. Day was an advocate for the abolition of slavery prior to the Civil War and later voting rights and economic opportunities for African Americans in the second half of the 19th century. The Jacob Day residence at 50 West 13th Street is a rare extant site that is historically and culturally significant, in particular for its connection to the New York City's pre-Civil War and post-Reconstruction African American history. The building is located on West 13th Street between 5th and 6th Avenues, just north of the Greenwich Village Historic District. The proposed landmark site is the tax lot. Jacob Day was a significant figure, both as an abolitionist and a prominent businessman before the Civil War. Abolitionism was a dangerous activity for Black individuals, but despite the risks, Day was a member of the National Anti-Slavery Society, a contemporary of other distinguished abolitionists of the day, and a member of Abyssinia Baptist Church at 166 Waverly Place, a strong supporter of abolition and African-American civil rights that was targeted during the 1863 draft riots. Day was a successful caterer when this was one of the few profitable business opportunities Black men could pursue. He was a member of the Freedmen's Bank, founded after the Civil War as a means of improving economic prospects of African Americans, and a member of the Caterers Club, along with other Black entrepreneurs who made a name for themselves at that time. Eventually becoming an affluent property owner, Jacob Day was considered part of the New York City's Black elite in the 19th century, at a time when African Americans faced substantial barriers to the building of wealth. He had begun to own real estate as early as 1846 through a land grant in upstate New York given by abolitionist Gerrit Smith, a fellow member of the Anti-Slavery Society, and later owned property in Brooklyn and Long Island. At the time of Jacob Day's death in 1884, he was worth an estimated $200,000, equivalent to nearly $6 million today. There are very few surviving sites in Manhattan associated with pre-Civil War abolitionist movement. The LPC designation, two LPC designations with this history include 2 White Street, home of abolitionist Theodore S. Wright, a prominent Black minister and head of the Presbyterian Church, and Lamartine Place Historic District, known for its association with white abolitionists Abby Hopper Gibbons and James Sloan Gibbons, who escaped with their family from this site during the 1863 draft riots. The Jacob Day residence is strongly associated with this history, as well as the Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction eras after the Civil War. The building was built in 1845 for William B. Vash and appears on this 1854 Paris map on the left. At this time, there was a coal yard open to the street next to the property. The building also appears in this 1857 map on the right. At this time, in the mid-19th century, despite significant discrimination and harsh living conditions, Greenwich Village became home to many Black residents, businesses, schools, churches, and benevolent societies. The area around Minetta Lane and Bleecker Street, south of Washington Square, became known as Little Africa. Census records indicate that Jacob Day rented additional rooms to other African Americans. According to the Board of Education records, prominent educator, abolitionist, and later suffragist Sarah J. Tompkins Garnett resided at 50 West 13th Street from 1860s to 1874. During the time she lived at the house, Tompkins Garnett was a teacher and later in 1863 was appointed one of the first Black female principals in New York City public school system at Colored School Number 4, a designated New York City landmark. The row house is a rare example of 19th century Greek Revival style building. It retains its 19th century form, materials, and facade configuration to the 40-year period of association with Jacob Day and his family. After Jacob Day's heirs moved out of the house in 1896, the house had various owners until the 1950s. In 1959, 50 West 13th Street was renovated to create a theater in the basement, a school at the first floor, and apartments above. Among various tenants in the middle of the 20th century, in 1968, a groundbreaking 4-member Afro-American folklore troupe had a residency at the theater, performing poetry, folklore, and works of well-known Black writers, James Weldon Johnson, Gwendolyn Brooks, Leroy Jones, and Langston Hughes. From 1972 to 2020, the building was home to the 13th Street Repertory Company, one of New York City's longest running off-Broadway theaters. Founded by Edith O'Hare, many well-known actors and playwrights honed their craft at the 26-seat basement theater, including Bette Midler, Barry Manilow, Chaz Palminteri, Amy Stiller, and Richard Dreyfuss. built more than 175 years ago and owned by Jacob Day and his family for nearly 40 years. 50 West 13th Street is an extraordinarily significant and rare extant row house associated with mid-19th century pre- and post-Civil War Black history. The Greek Revival style building is historically and culturally significant for its connection to a prominent African-American abolitionist, civil rights activist, and businessman, and the importance of the African-American community in Greenwich Village in the 19th century. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Commissioners, any questions this time? Okay, so we're going to move to public testimony and yes. Oh, Commissioner Goldblum.
Just wanted to ask if if you go back to well, it doesn't matter. The time of significance for the Day family's occupation of the house, was that wrought iron thing part of the historical importance? And were there any other modifications that we know of that he might have made in his day that were either here or not here?
So, I mean, I'll defer to Margaret, I think if you want to speak to the ironwork or any other alterations.
The ironwork, which I think was removed before calendaring, we think it likely dates to the mid-19th century. We haven't found documentation of, that it's original to the building. But we did, comparing it to other residences, similar
So,
style.
the use of the catering use, there were no.
We do think that the central window in the basement, which you can see in the tax photo there,
Right.
that likely dates to the time of Jacob Day's ownership. But again, that's the earliest photo that we have.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So in the 2022 photograph, there's a fire escape, and in the 2024 photograph, there isn't. What happened, or do you know?
It was removed by
But
the
you-
owners.
No idea why.
I have no idea why.
Thank
sir.
you.
Right, there's a new owner who is starting to make some repairs and will be, if we move forward, working with us to do that. All right, any other questions? Okay, so we're going to move to public testimony. We will start with the speakers who are here in person and who have signed up. And then we'll see if there's anyone else who wants to speak, and then we'll move to any participants who are with us remotely through Zoom. So we'll start with Kristen Callahan.
Hi, everybody. I've never done this before, but here I am. So the presentation to me was enough. It would be enough to convince me, but I want to add another piece. I was an educator for 29 years and in low-income schools all over New York City. I was also in the schools a theater director, producer, playwright, and put together programs for students where there was absolutely no money and still is no money. Actually had a theater built for me by one of my principals, John Woodland, if anybody knows him, wound up in the superintendent's office and he's still in the school system. So, so how does that pertain to 13th Street? What I decided to do, guess it was about maybe 18, 20 years ago, maybe, is to get into off Broadway theater. I had never done that before, but I walked into 13th Street Rep. I met Edith. And I sat with Edith and I explained to her what I did in the schools and what I wanted to do. She had a theater program there for children. And I said, well, can I do something here? And she said, sure, we have this children's play called Rumple's Who, you can direct that. And I did. And it got my start probably over 10 years doing off Broadway work, but it also allowed me to be able to bring the professionalism that I learned on the job to go back into the schools and work with my students. And I still have students today. 2 of them are coming to my watch party. who I still see and are still in the arts and still working in the program. So for me, and I mean, I'm just saying, I think that a site like this and somebody like Edith that did what she did and did for me and did for so many students all over New York City, that we have no funding. It is such a disgrace for the arts that we should not only keep this building, but we should keep it as a community theater, a place where people can get into the arts and learn the arts and work in the arts. And I feel so passionate about that. Like I said, I've never done this before in my life, but I'm retired now and I can stand up for what I believe in. I really believe that, any ways that I can help, any ways that I can get involved. I live on 15th Street between 7th and 8th. You're all welcome to come to my watch party if you want to stop by. And thank you. That's really all I had to say. But I hope that we can keep it and we can do something special with it to help, help the community and keep the community with the arts, right? So important. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Anita Isola.
And the history has certainly been covered better than I.
I'm sorry to interject. Could you please state your name for the record, please?
Anita Isola.
Thank.
I'm a lifelong villager, which is saying something because I'm pushing 75. And I've passed by that building at least a billion times, not knowing anything except for the sign on the canopy, and taking my little boy to one of the performances. But this particular building is really a relic of African-American history in the village. And although there is a lot of history in the village about African-Americans, most of it is totally invisible and it just has been silenced. Little Africa has so many aspects that are gone, like that beautiful Greek Revival Church, Saint Benedict the Moor. That was the first African-American Roman Catholic church north of the Mason-Dixon line. And it could go on and on and on. Over the years, I have seen more and more and more just disappear. And this is a particularly difficult case because I understand its present appearance. However, I'm asking you to please not be distracted by the present appearance, because I don't know how funny that is, really, because of the value of this building and its history. I guess that's about all I have to say. I've seen so many gone. And Andrew and his organization has been fighting for years and years and years. This is not one to let go of, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Washington.
Morning, Chair Carroll and commissioners. It's so nice to see everyone in person in the little Zoom Hollywood Squares. My name is Eric K. Washington. I'm a researcher, historian, and author. It was I myself who submitted the RFE for the 19th century schoolhouse at 128 West 17th Street, which the commission designated as the former colored school number 4 last year in May 23. Today, I'm thrilled that the commission is considering if the Jacob Day residence merits designation. Thrilled because both the structure at 50 West 13th Street and its namesake have a serendipitous connection to the schoolhouse. It was John Freeman Gill's Streetscapes article in the Times where I first learned about the Jacob Day's house and about Village Preservation's efforts to save it. Now, I had no involvement in those efforts to save the house, but a couple of years later, the 1870 US Census and other public records handed me some curious celebrity I thought worth sharing. And indeed, Village Preservation's winter 2024 newsletter graciously noted that I had revealed that Sarah Tompkins Garnett, the legendary principal of former Colored School Number 4, also lived here for about a decade while Jacob Day owned the house. However, there's still more. Since then, I found that years prior to Jacob Day having lodged Sarah Tompkins Garnett, along with her daughter Serena Tompkins and her sister Emma Smith, he'd already established a strong connection to New York City's network of racial caste public schools. Around 1860, other teachers were making their home at Day's West 13th Street address, and they included Sarah A. Douglas, who would later work under Tompkins Garnett, Sarah Hamilton, and notably Charlotte S. Smith, the late principal who Tompkins Garnett would replace. Jacob Day ran his business as a public caterer and confectioner from the same address, and one 1859 commission that exemplified his high stature was a banquet at Old St. Patrick's Cathedral for the sensational diamond wedding of Francis Bartlett to Don Esteban Santa Cruz de Oviedo. By 1871, Day was worth $75,000. That was about $2 million today. But the esteemed businessman was also conspicuous in New York's social justice movement. In that same year, in 1871, at the Great Hall at Cooper Union, Day was made an officer of the Suffrage Action Committee under the Reverend Henry Highland Garnett during the second Jubilee celebration marking the passage of the 15th Amendment. As Black New Yorkers celebrated this legislative benchmark annually for some two decades more, a chief organizer who would be described as its moving spirit had been Day's longtime tenant, Sarah Tompkins Garnett. James Day's patrons reportedly included such Gilded Age notables as Railroad Titans Commodore Vanderbilt and George Law, the Harper brothers of publishing fame, and New York City mayors William Frederick Havemeyer and George Opdyke. Such patronage gave Day the means, upon his death in 1884, to pass along his enterprise as well as his considerable wealth and real estate to his children, a rare empowerment for African Americans of his time. So the house at 50 West 13th Street may be a little worse for wear, but I believe its association with a Black businessman of such remarkable achievement and reputation, who is also a citizen nonpareil in the most challenging of times, compels us to save it. I respectfully request that the commissioners designate Jacob Day residence as an individual cultural landmark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you as always for your expert knowledge. Andrew Berman.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Andrew Berman, Executive Director of Village Preservation. In the fall of 2020, Village Preservation first urged the commission to landmark the then already endangered 50 West 13th Street. That was followed by 3 additional submissions to the commission documenting the rich African-American, civil rights, suffragist, theater, and LGBTQ history connected to this building. As our research showed, that history emanated from figures such as leading Black businessman, abolitionist, and voting rights advocate Jacob Day, who owned the building and lived in it between 1858 and 1884. Black civil rights leader, educator, and trailblazing suffragist Sarah Smith Garnett, who lived here from 1866 to 1874, and Edith O'Hara and her 13th Street Repertory Theater, located here from 1972 to 2020. This was followed by entreaties to the commission to designate the site from numerous local elected officials, citywide and statewide preservation organizations, and leading Black, women's, and theater history scholars, as well as hundreds of New Yorkers who urged the commission to save and protect this building. During that time, as reported to the commission, the building's condition steadily deteriorated, and prior to the building's calendaring, the owner destroyed historic features including lintels and a rare, elaborately detailed ironwork doorway surround, in an apparent attempt to either avoid the slow-rolling landmark designation or ensure it didn't protect these critical elements. We're glad we're finally at a point where further destruction of this important historic site can be prevented if the commission acts swiftly. We strongly urge the commission to approve landmark designation as soon as possible, and once designation takes place, to ensure that necessary renovation work to the facade includes restoration of the critical historic features that were destroyed prior to the LPC calendaring. This site speaks to so many important and underrepresented facets of New York's history, overcoming powerful forces to advance Black civil rights and entrepreneurship, fighting the long battle for women's suffrage, providing LGBTQ representation and visibility when few such opportunities existed, and nurturing innovative alternative cultural expression. 50 West 13th Street clearly deserves the long overdue recognition and protection that only landmark designation can offer. We hope this building will soon join the small number of other designated New York City landmarks which honor and protect these sorts of still all too frequently underrepresented histories. We also hope 50 West 13th Street will soon be joined by the many other sites in our neighborhoods and across the city that embody similar, often undervalued histories, and also cry out for and sorely need the recognition and protection that can only come with landmark designation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Please come up to the podium, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Morning, my name is Michael Quinn. I just want to start by thanking Andrew Berman and Village Preservation for all they do to help save these landmarks, these buildings. You know, growing up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, we had so many theaters, affordable theaters. Our neighborhoods had community gardens. You know, and now all these places are disappearing. There are not that many of these places left. I was friends with Edith O'Hara for 25 years. In the 90s, I acted in Israel Horowitz's play Line, had the lead role. And think about Edith. Edith was inclusive. When she would cast her plays, it didn't matter your background, what you look like. She wanted to give everyone a chance. So when I was cast in the play Line, I'm 6'3", with an Irish background. Israel Horowitz kicked me around the corner and looked at me and said, wait a second, I wrote this for a short Jewish man. Richard Dreyfuss was in the original production. But it didn't matter to Edith. Edith included everyone. And during this time period, it was almost like an orphanage. So kids would come from the Midwest and arrive in New York City. Some would just graduate college, some just graduated high school. And then would come to the 13th Street Rep, and Edith would take them in. And like myself, would live above the theater, above, I was doing the play, so I'd have to take the subway home. And she created a culture there of being inclusive and equality. And, you know, I spent many nights with Edith and having dinner with her, and she had a playbook collection that went back to the 1940s. I remember one time we were talking about the play, A Streetcar Named Desire on Broadway. And I thought she went to the production with Alec Baldwin. She goes, no, I have the original one. It's from April of 1948. She goes, yeah, I saw Marlon Brando win that. It was just amazing. And she has this collection, and she had such a love for theater, the history of theater. And so many kids would stay there with her, and she would feed them and make sure that she taught them how to act. She taught them how to perform, how to be professionals. And every single person chipped in. You had to spend a couple of hours a week doing the lighting or sweeping the lobby, or whatever you needed to do to help out. It was a real community there. And I know there's so much of the history there that we just found out about, you know, about African-American history and women's suffrage, but I'm just sharing my personal connection with a woman who lived there, was the artistic director, and met so much to so many young people. She gives so many people a chance. Like Chaz Palmentieri started his career there. He had directed him in the same play that I was in. So it was just a wonderful place to go to. And we're losing so many of these places in the past few years. We lost Theater 80, another place I was associated with. I used to do plays at the Grove Street Playhouse. So I think it's really, really important that we keep these theaters intact, our community gardens, things that mean a lot to the community, to the people of New York City. And it breaks my heart when I pass by the theater seeing it now in its dilapidated condition, and how much fun and how much all I accomplished in that theater with plays and the friends I made. So I really, really urge you to consider landmarking 13th Street Repertory Company of this theater. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? All right, not seeing any of on hands, I will turn it over to Gregory College to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you would like to speak on this item remotely, please click the raise hand button now, and I will call on you. Okay, we have a few hands raised. So the first person I will call on is Andrea Goldwyn from New York Landmarks Conservancy. Andrea Goldwyn, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Carroll and Commissioners. I'm Andrea Goldwyn, speaking on behalf of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy is pleased to join local advocates in supporting designation of the Jacob Day residence as an individual landmark. The site merits designation for both its history and architecture. While there have been so many other changes on this block, this Greek Revival style row house at nearly 180 years old retains its historic height, massing, composition, and some details. As you've heard, it was also a locus of New York's African-American history. Jacob Day, a prominent 19th century Black businessman, lived here from 1858 until his death in 1884. Day was a successful caterer whose business was in the house and an abolitionist. He was a member of Abyssinian Baptist Church and belonged to the National Anti-Slavery Society, along with Reverend Henry Highland Garnett. Educator Sarah J.S. Tompkins Garnett rented rooms in the house when she was a teacher and principal of the nearby landmark, former colored school number 4, prior to her marriage to Garnett. Day's sons continued the catering business there until 1896. In the mid-20th century, the building was partly converted for theater use, where the Afro-American folklore troupe had a residency. It was the home of Off-Broadway 13th Street Repertory Company from 1972 until 2020. Since the theater closed, 50 West 13th Street has faced an uncertain fate, but its distinct architecture and remarkable history make a clear argument for landmark recognition. We thank the Commission for bringing the Jacob Day residence forward and urge a swift vote to designate. Thank you for the opportunity to express the Conservancy's views.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Claudette Brady. Claudette Brady, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Okay. And once you are a panelist, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Hello, Claudette Brady, are you with us? Okay, I've unmuted your line. Claudette Brady, if you could please speak. I see that you have your hand raised. Okay. Okay, it appears Claudette may be having some technical difficulties, so I'll move on to our next speaker, that being Dana Tass-Winter from Village Preservation. Dana Tass-Winter, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dina Tass-Winter, and I'm speaking as the Director of Research and Preservation for Village Preservation. We strongly support landmark designation of 50 West 13th Street based upon the incredibly significant history of the house over 2 centuries and its intact architectural detail, though some of that was lost prior to calendaring. According to our research submitted to the Commission, the house was built in the Greek Revival style circa 1846 to 47, with elaborate ironwork that survived in part at its areaway railing and entirely in the doorway surround, until removed by the owner just prior to calendaring. To reiterate some of the most salient history, by 1858 and until his death in 1884, the building was owned by and was the home and place of business of Jacob Day, one of the most successful Black businessmen in New York City at the time. A prominent caterer, Day was also a cornerstone of New York's Black community, which was at the time centered in Greenwich Village. Day was a leading member of the Abyssinian Baptist Church, and prior to the Civil War, was deeply involved in supporting the abolitionist cause. After, while continuing to support local Black institutions, Day focused on efforts to remove unequal property requirements for Black men that impeded equal access to the vote. Among Day's many services to New York's African-American community, he took in boarders connected to the institutions he supported. A prominent one was Sarah Smith Tompkins Garnett, who lived there from 1866 to 1874. Garnett was the founder of the Equal Voters League, the first organization dedicated to extending the franchise to Black women, and as a leading educator, she was the first Black female principal in New York City. Her future husband, Henry Highland Garnett, was a leading abolitionist who became the first African American to address Congress and ambassador to Liberia. Beginning in 1958, the building housed a series of theaters and performance companies, including the Afro-American Folkloric Troupe. In 1972, the 13th Street Repertory Theater opened here under Edith O'Hara, becoming one of New York's premier off-Broadway theaters, which would host its longest-running show, Israel Horovitz's Line. Prior to that, the theater helped launch the careers of Bette Midler, Barry Manilow, Chaz Palminteri, Richard Dreyfuss, and Christopher Maloney, among others. Tennessee Williams hosted a series of performances of his work there, and New York's first hit gay musical, Boy Meets Boy, was staged there after being rejected by several other venues. 50 West 13th Street embodies nearly 2 centuries of significant New York and American history. This clearly documented record of this house warrants swift action by the Commission to recognize and preserve its legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we'll be hearing from Joe John Batista. Joe John Batista, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Okay. And once you are a panelist, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to be there. My name is Joe John Batista. From 2014 to 2020, I was the artistic director. So you can consider me cleanup crew for the last 6 years that I was there. And, you know, I'm not a historian, so I'm going to speak some reality of what I know. I know that the theater was so important to so many people that my job was to take it and elevate it and keep it alive. And during that period, I had met so many people that knew more about the theater and the history and what Edith O'Hara did than most people can imagine. I do think that there's a sort of a disease in New York about real estate, and Edith held on with every ounce of strength she could. She became old. I came in there and I vowed to keep the theater alive. With the stories that I heard about the Underground Railroad, I can tell you that I was down in the basement probably 200 times. I actually saw walls that connected to the building next door, which now is the Walker Hotel. And when they put the Walker Hotel up, they conveniently and swiftly covered up that entrance. So it was burying an idea that everyone talked about, that it actually happened, that the Underground Railroad existed. So what I'm trying to say is that the heart of this theater, even though I am not a historian, and I am thrilled to find out about Jacob Day and Sarah Garnett, I want you to know that a lot of people would deny that. And I realized as I was there, what else don't we know? What else don't we know about the building? I mean, the building was a home to so many children that studied there, that were able to come in a line every day after school to find a place to grow, to keep them safe, to be educated. And as far as the talent's concerned, even back, you know, before the 70s, I mean, you know, Bette Midler was there, Barry Manilow was there. The people that have invested their time in there, Austin Pendleton, people from The Sopranos, people from Broadway, people from film. It was just an amazing venue and an opportunity for people to find somewhere to create, with it not being, you know, on a 4th floor or in a basement. It had its own charm. Before I left, I had developed such a following with educated talent that were craving to get in, but we ran out of time. You know, Edith lived to be 103 years old. I was able to get great film producers that gave us money and renovated the theater in there, actually made it beautiful, and the stage was straight, only to find out as soon as Edith died, it was demolished. It's cratered, and I have those photos. So what I'm trying to say is that the opportunities it gave everybody, they go on and on. I don't want to bore anybody with this, but they go on. Even the seats that were in there, they were from the Sullivan Street Playhouse, and they were used for the Fantastics. You know, let alone saying, you know, line was there, and it was one of the longest off-Broadway plays for 50 years
Okay.
that we're able to maintain.
I apologize. I'm sorry. If you could please wrap up your testimony.
Right.
You,
So I'm just saying I'm in favor for having it landmarked. I think the history of it is important to the area, to New York. And that's all I have to say. I thank you for the opportunity. And I want to thank the Village Preservation for all the hard work they've done.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we'll be trying one more time with Claudette Brady. It appears she has worked on her mic, and that should be good to go now. Claudette Brady, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Okay, and once you're a panelist, please unmute your mic and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Claudette Brady. I am Executive Director of Save Harlem Now, and Save Harlem Now wholeheartedly supports this designation. Throughout the history of this nation, the lives and contributions of African Americans have been erased, particularly the stories of those who managed to prosper and survive prior to the Civil War and during Reconstruction. Many villages and towns founded by African Americans had been burnt to the ground, subsequently covered by parks, lakes, and highways. Today, many state legislators are actively working to suppress the teaching of African American history, thereby expanded the narrative of the history of this nation. Today, we have the opportunity to celebrate and preserve a site not only important to African Americans, to our theater, but to this nation's history and culture. We support the designation of this site, and we urge the commission to do so. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good day.
Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society in New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. And once you're a panelist, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now founded in New York City in 1966, the Victorian Society in America is dedicated to fostering the appreciation and preservation of our 19th and early 20th century heritage. The New York chapter promotes preservation of our historic districts, individual and scenic landmarks, interiors, and civic art. The Victorian Society in New York testifies in enthusiastic support of the designation of the Jacob Day residence at 50 West 13th Street. Besides its architectural significance as a remarkably intact example of a 19th century Greek Revival style row house, it holds significance for its ties to both the African American and theater history. There is no need for us to repeat an enumeration of the features of the history that make the house worthy of designations. Others have done that in their testimony, and the Commission is aware of the house's importance, or they would not have been calendared it for a designation. We recommend that the designation report incorporate a description of significant architectural features that have been removed from the building. These include the notable ironwork that was present during the period of significance and may possibly date to the original construction of the house. Such a description will assist the Commission and the preservation staff when reviewing future proposals for restoration of the house. And please see our written testimony for the illustrations we provided. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. As the citywide advocate for New York's architectural, historical, and cultural neighborhoods, the Historic Districts Council supports the designation of the Jacob Day residence at 50 West 13th Street as an individual landmark. Built circa 1845, this building served as a home and business headquarters for the Black abolitionist and entrepreneur Jacob Day, who lived and worked here from 1858 to 1884, while members of his family remained in residence until 1896. Additionally, Day rented rooms in this building to other prominent Black New Yorkers, including the educator, abolitionist, and suffragist Sarah Smith Tompkins Garnett. In 1959, the building was remodeled to house a theater. From 1973 to 2020, the theater was home to the 13th Street Repertory Company, one of New York's oldest off-Broadway venues. HDC applauds the 4-year effort advocates undertook to bring this building to the attention of the LPC, and we are proud to have written a letter of support to LPC on behalf of this designation. We're glad to reiterate that support today, and we look forward to seeing a restoration that reflects the building's meaningful and varied history. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised for this item. If you would like to speak, please click the raise hand button now. Okay. I do not see any other hands raised, so I will note for the record that we also received a letter recommending approval from Councilmember Rivera, as well as one other individual. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for participating today. It was very moving to hear the testimony about all the layers of the building's history. So I think, yes, Commissioner Ginsburg, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question which I realize is the probable answer, but it sounds like the theater may have been already demolished. But, and I realize we don't control use, but is there any way that the theater space as a public space could be included in the designation?
Well, because we don't regulate use, we could not mandate or compel that in a designation. I mean, we certainly talk about that layer of significance, but we couldn't compel a certain use or type of operation. Yeah.
We could compel to make it certain space, not what it's used for.
No. Yeah. Right. It's because it's not a designated interior, or it isn't being proposed to be designated as an interior landmark. And it doesn't have features at this point that could be eligible for that. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to make a motion to close the hearing, and then we will resume. We will have a future public meeting, and we'll have a vote at that time, and we'll plan to do that in the very near future. So, Commissioner Vice Chair Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and we will see you all soon in the near future to have our vote. Thank you. Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Margaret. Okay, we'll now move to our Preservation Department public hearing agenda, and I'll turn it over to Corey Harala.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. We'll start today's Preservation Department public hearing agenda with item number 1. LPC 24-09546, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 2120, lot 19, 144 Lafayette Avenue in the Fort Greene Historic District. This is an Italianate style row house built circa 1856 with later alterations. And the application is to construct a stoop, replace windows, and alter the facade and front areaway.
My name's Jennifer Jarek Harris. I'm the registered architect, also the homeowner. I've lived in the area since 1990, went to Pratt Institute, graduated, and I'm a partner at Peter Penoyer Architects. And we would have come to you sooner, but we had to put 3 children through college. So now is the time to complete the home. This is a brownstone in Fort Greene area. The top right photo shows the 1941 tax lot photo. Our building is the center. The building to the right actually doesn't exist any longer, and the building to the left is still intact. And our intent is to focus on the lower floors, the street level and the first floor level, and bring it back to its original condition. And we are the only house on the block without a stoop, and we'd like to sort of complete the look of the block. The bottom photos on the page there show our house to the right, 144. You can see that there is no stoop. The areaway is just sort of a concrete pitched patch that's broken and prone to rodents and all kinds of terrible things. The building on the left has a stoop that is a rental unit at the moment, but much of its detailing is still intact. And then the building to the far left, 148, has a stoop, but has had some alterations over the years. These are street views, looking at our block from the east and with the west. From the west, top left corner and bottom of the page on the left-hand side shows a more enlarged view. You're seeing a sense of the stoops that exist on the adjacent houses. Some of them are not filed, but do exist and still bring a sense of cohesion to the block. The views on the right are from the east side. You can see in the upper right-hand corner and the lower right-hand corner our areaway that needs a lot of repair. We have a bus stop in front. We get a lot of traffic and just people that constantly are standing in front of our building. So the goal is to, sorry, before I get to the goal, just more enlarged images of the front facade. You'll see that in the top left-hand corner, the first floor was, the parlor windows were shortened. They have a transom there. There were balconies added. The stoop was removed on the left-hand side. The bottom two windows are actually original. We'd like to keep those, original to that time period. We'd like to keep those, keep the iron bars. But the goal is to redo the brownstone, enlarge the two windows, add the stoop, and complete the areaway with this ironwork. So this drawing shows the existing versus the proposed. The first floor, we're proposing to have double hung windows with a lintel with decorative brackets left and right. A stoop with an overdoor, also with decorative brownstone details, iron railings cast in a pattern to match the adjacent stoop, and a gate, bluestone areaway. Because the building on the right has been removed, our areaway gate would then return and come back to the building. These are plan views talking about the areaway. The top of the page is the existing, and the bottom of the page shows the proposed. These are section details, also demonstrating proposed new stoop, the return of the iron areaway gate and railing, a door under the stoop, an iron gate door under the stoop to allow access to the basement floor or ground floor, and the stoop to the drawing to the right, the stoop with the section of the door going into the house. The cornice also needs repair. A lot of the brackets have fallen out. I believe that's staff level consideration. So, and these are details of the existing versus the proposed. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, are there questions? Yes, Commissioner
Why
Goldblum.
is this not a staff level approval?
So the reason it's not a staff level approval is because when the stoop was removed and the three windows were created, that was a layer of the building's history. And so it's before the commission for us to determine whether it is appropriate to remove that layer of history to restore the stoop.
Thank you.
If I could just add one piece to that as well. Also, the windows being proposed are 1/1 aluminum clad wood windows, and a house of this style would have almost definitely originally had multi-light of some variation. So even though it doesn't currently at its upper floors, and I don't think any of the neighbors do, they were changed over time. Staff level rules would have required something like a 2/2 or a 4/4 of that period. So it's the request to remove the later alterations, as Sarah mentioned, but also that particular window configuration.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. All right, any other questions? Let's see if we have public.
Do we know when the later alteration was done?
Corey?
The report, I mean, it kind of implies it's early 20th century. It looks maybe Neo-Georgian or something like that, but the report doesn't speak of them other than to say that what happened removed the original stoop and parlor floor lintels and sash.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? All right. Not seeing that there is, I'm going to turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one remote participant with their hand raised, that being Christina Conroy from Victorian Society of New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. A question is raised by this application that we have addressed before, more commonly in historic districts in Manhattan, especially Greenwich Village. The trend of fashionable makeovers of row houses in the early 20th century, done for both multifamily conversions and single-family homes, is important to the history of housing in New York and the evolution of historic districts. We have testified in the past for preserving these changes. The features at 144 Lafayette Street, which reflect this architectural trend, include the removal of the stoop and creation of a ground floor entrance, installation of multi-light and leaded glass windows, removal of brownstone trim at the parlor floor and creation of keystones, and addition of small iron balconies. It's worth noting that the design of the ironwork balconies matches that of the leaded glass transoms. We believe the Commission should consider whether these changes made to these buildings are sufficiently comprehensive that they deserve retention as a significant alteration. In our view, in this case, they do not. We find the work was literally half-hearted, extending only to the lower half of the facade, and it doesn't include some of the other key features usually found on full-blown examples of these conversions. The proposed facade restoration appears to be based on historic precedent at the matching adjacent buildings and on details typically found on buildings of this age and style. We support this work. Unless there is some significance that we are unable to discern to the very unusual areaway pavement, we think its replacement with a more typical areaway design proposed is also appropriate. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any attendees with their hands raised, so I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. So we've had supportive testimony. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say before we move to our discussion.
Thank you for your time.
All right. And Commissioners, if there are no final questions, we'll move to close the hearing. All right. And let me just check with Angie. Okay. So Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So this, as we've discussed, is a proposal to remove these 20th century alterations to the building to restore the stoop, lengthen the parlor floor windows, and install a new door at the parlor floor, undergate stoop, and an areaway and fence, all based on the historic features in the row and on buildings of this age and type. We're also considering the 1/1 double hung aluminum clad wood windows, which match the configuration of, I think, all of the other windows in the row, but are probably were not the original configuration. So we'll begin that discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think in this case, we have an example of a house that has been recorded for its renovation and removal of historic character. It's very clear what the building original design and condition was. What is being proposed seems like a basic replacement or back to the original state. I don't feel that the early 20th century renovation here merits protection. I think it is a bit odd how half of the lower, the ground and the second floor have been altered from the rest of the street consistent design and fabric. I therefore find this proposal appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
This is a simple restoration project. And I can prove it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Chapin.
Yes, I agree with my fellow commissioners.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Me too.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Appropriate.
Vice Chair Bland, Commissioner Lutfi.
Appropriate.
Thank you, and Commissioner Master.
Yeah, it's appropriate, and I think it restores like the rhythm of the streetscape back to what it should be.
Okay, thank you. So I think we are in agreement. Commissioner Chu, would you make the
Yes,
motion?
in the case of LPC 2409546144 Lafayette Avenue, Fort Greene Historic District, an Italian style row house built in circa 1856 with later alteration. Application is to install stoop, replace windows, and alter the facade and front areaway. I recommend approval, finding that the existing altered facade is not a fine example of significant later alteration, and the proposed removal of multi-light windows, leaded transoms, balconets, and other ironwork will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of the building, that the proposed work will return the building closer to its historic appearance and will reintegrate the facade with the others in the row, that the design materials and finishes of the proposed new entrance, surround and infill parlor window opening, stoop, ironwork, and understoop gate will match historic architectural features seen in the row and throughout the historic district, that the proposed aluminum clad wood 1/1 double hung windows will be in keeping with the configuration and details of windows found in other buildings in the row, and the change in material will not be discernible, that removing the raised concrete and brick areaway surface and installing bluestone paving surrounded by Italianate inspired ironwork will recall the historic areaway in terms of design materials and configuration, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 25-01205. An application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1856, lot 26, 192 MacDonough Street in the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. This is a French neo-Grec style row house designed by Arthur Taylor and built in 1888. The application is to construct a balcony at the rear facade.
Hi, good morning. My name is Krista Diaz. I'm here on behalf of Adrian Diaz. So everybody hear me okay? Yes. Okay. 192 MacDonough Street is in the original historic district boundary. The scope of work for this submittal is to install a steel balcony on the second floor and rear facade. All other items of the building alteration have been approved at the staff level. In these slides, you'll see the earliest photo record of the front facade and streetscape. And in these slides, just showing existing facades on that block currently. In the top left, you'll see the existing rear facade condition of a left adjacent property. Bottom center is the existing rear facade condition of the right adjacent property. And then on the right side, you'll see the existing rear facade with the red rectangle delineating the area of the second floor balcony. And then this is the block plan, which shows that there are no vacant lots or openings that would make the rear facade visible from the streets and the block. And then presenting as precedents for the second floor rear balcony, 176 MacDonough Street has a 2-story rear extension. 180 and 196 MacDonough Street has steel fire escapes attached to their rear facades. And in this slide CAD drawings of the rear facade before and after. And then here you'll see the second floor plan before and after. And then you'll see at the top left, this is the sample of the balcony type. The bottom left, you'll see the balcony construction details. And then on the right side, you'll see rear elevation with second floor, rear balcony and access door. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, let's see if we have testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Okay, noting that there isn't, we'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I see that we have a couple of hands raised for this item. The first we'll be hearing from is Alex Abarnell Grossman from Brooklyn Community Board 3. Alex, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alex Abarnell Grossman, representing Brooklyn Community Board 3, here to read the board's resolution regarding a certificate of appropriateness for 192 MacDonough Street. Regarding LPC application docket number 2408990 for 192 MacDonough Street in the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District, Block 1856, Lot 26. The application is to alter the rear facade, existing extension, rooftop, and front yard of a residential row house located at 192 MacDonough Street between Troop Avenue and Marcus Garvey Boulevard. The building is situated within the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. Committee observations. The applicant is seeking the following: to correct 2 violations, violation number 4/0597, installation of parlor floor security gate and window grill without permits, and B, violation number 4/0596, replacement of windows at front facade without permits. The applicant is also seeking to renovate the interior to create a 3-family dwelling unit interior, which involves the relocation of plumbing fixtures, to create an ADA compliant access, a ramp in the front yard by excavating and forming a concrete structure from the sidewalk level to basement level, and also to rebuild and expand single-story extensions at the rear of the basement level. Committee comments read thus: an existing rear yard extension is to be demolished and replaced with a slightly larger stucco extension with a parlor level deck above. The extension appears to be consistent with other extensions in the row of brownstone buildings and within the block. Exact dimensions were not provided. The black painted deck railings appear to be appropriate in material and form. The front yard cellar access stair and steel doors are inappropriate. The doors are much larger than hatch covers on adjacent properties and are not consistent within the historic district. The rooftop railings are not sufficiently set back, are visible from public areas, and are questionable in terms of fire safety between adjacent buildings. Rooftop HVAC equipment is not sufficiently set back out of view, and structural dunnage is not indicated. FDNY access ways should be indicated. Full construction documents are requested to show rooftop details and cellar plans. The rooftop Bilco type access doors in a low profile configuration are encouraged as opposed to a full bulkhead. Detailed drawings and specifications are requested. In consideration of allowed improvements, the Brooklyn Community Board 3 Landmarks Preservation Committee requests the placement of historical newel posts at the stoop, correctly sized and detailed to match the original newel posts. Though some of the proposed alterations are not contextual, this project will overall improve building in the district and will not deter from the historic character of the district. Therefore, be it resolved, Brooklyn Community Board number 3 supports the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for alterations to 192 MacDonough Street, Brooklyn, New York 11233, with the following stipulations: there be no second floor balcony, rooftop railings and equipment are set back out of view, and the new rear yard extension is not larger in area than the existing extension. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. And next up, we'll be hearing from John Polson. John Polson, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Polson. Good morning, commissioners, and thank you, first of all, for the important work you do in preserving the history and the character of New York City. Excuse me. I'm having a technical issue here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I am here to express concerns about the proposed renovations and to ensure any changes respect the integrity of our neighborhood and the LPC's standards. I fully support improvements that follow code and the LPC guidelines as they can keep our neighborhood vibrant. However, I have significant reservations about this proposal, which I'll outline in 3 key areas. First, aesthetics and history. To my knowledge, there are no other balconies like the one proposed anywhere nearby. Approving this could set a dangerous precedent and disrupt the historic character of our block. This is about maintaining the visual and historical integrity of our entire street, not just one building. Secondly, privacy. The balcony that's being proposed would overlook our property and others for the first time, allowing direct views into our yards. I think that raises privacy concerns, especially for families like mine who are literally a few feet away from the balcony you just saw, including my children. Additionally, the potential noise from a gathering space, as a balcony often is, could disrupt what is now a mostly very peaceful environment. Lastly, safety and damage. I've only spoken with the owner very briefly. I've been frankly struggling to get information about this. I didn't receive any flyers or any information about it, so I have struggled. But I did meet the owner very briefly the other day on the stoop, and it seems there may be a lack of awareness about the scope and complexity of this project. As someone who has a shed wall, I'm deeply concerned about potential structural damage to my home and to others. And once that damage is done, it's costly and very difficult to repair. In closing, I support thoughtful improvements, but believe they must respect the history of our area and the well-being of all the residents. Thank you again for your time and the very important work you do to protect our neighborhoods.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised for this item, so I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So before you respond to the testimony, or before I ask if you would like to respond to the testimony, Corey, do you want to address any of the process for the staff level review? So we've heard testimony from the community board and the neighbor about the scope of the full project, and the majority of which is being reviewed at staff level. Some of it may have changed since the community board, I don't know, but that is a process that the applicant is undergoing currently with the staff, and the staff will ensure that all that work meets our rules and regulations. Corey, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, you really touched on most, but I think this is one of those cases where the applicant went to the community board before either filing with us or, while it was still premature. And so therefore showed an entire scope of work. Since then, the staff reviewed that and determined it was only this balcony that couldn't be made to meet staff level rules. But I think it's also fair to say some of what was shown to the community board was adjusted to meet staff level rules. So some of their comments no longer apply, and what staff approved is not necessarily what the community board saw. So all to say that the current scope of work before you, which is just the balcony, is the only thing before you. And we've actually issued permits for the remainder of the work as adjusted.
Okay, thank you. So would you like to respond to the comments we've heard about the balcony? I think there were concerns about noise and privacy, which are not actually issues that are under our jurisdiction. But to the extent that there are other projecting elements in the rear facade that provide context for it, that might be something you'd want to talk about. And come up to the microphone. So.
I can't really speak to this that much. And I don't really, so my father is the architect on the project. The owner is not as well versed in what's happening with the project because it's also a family member. So my dad has been taking care of it. So that's probably why when he ran into the owner, they weren't really able to speak to what was happening with the actual balcony area. In regards to the noise complaints, I mean, we still have a backyard, so I mean, if we're gonna remove everyone's backyards, then I guess that would alleviate all the noise complaints. But in regards to privacy, it's also not gonna be that large of a balcony where you would be able to see into everyone else's backyards. It'll probably be about the size of a fire escape, essentially.
Right.
So I don't think that there are necessarily a lot of privacy issues there. Also, MacDonough Street doesn't necessarily have balconies, but there are other streets with balconies at the back of their brownstones. So I don't see it as a major concern.
Right.
But if more context is needed, I think my colleague needs a follow-up.
I think I did see in your photographs that there's the projecting oriole immediately adjacent to you. And I think that there is a fire escape after that.
Yes.
So at least 2 doors over, there's a comparable projection.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
All right. Any other final questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
The question, the window that's to the left of the balcony, was that altered some point before or after designation? Do we know?
We may
It
not
seems
know
like
that.
it's in bad condition under the windowsill, and I'm just curious, could we bring that back to the original?
We could, even if, well, I think it would be very hard to know if it was done after
No.
designation because it's a non-visible rear
Yeah.
facade.
Yeah, and also just to note, when a secondary facade is not visible, staff level rules allow for a variety of changes to openings that don't always result in a matching pattern or symmetry or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's move to our discussion. Vice Chair Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed. And as we've heard, this is for, I think it's a 4-foot deep balcony that would span 2 windows at the 2nd floor of this building, not visible from a public way, and adjacent to a projecting oriole, and then beyond that, a fire escape of comparable depth. And this is something, as the applicant has said, this exists elsewhere in this district. It is a feature we've also approved. While we have been, I think, much more cautious about very deep balconies at upper floors, besides those that sit on top of a rear yard addition, we have actually very recently approved a number of times balconies that are about 4 feet deep that span 2 windows that sort of evoke fire escapes when there is a context that has similar types of projections. So that's something to think about as we discuss this application. So we'll begin our discussion now. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Okay. I mean, I think this is a pretty minor little extension, and it's there are some other things going on the backs of these buildings. It's not visible from any public way. And the issues of noise and so forth, yeah, I was kind of thinking there's backyards, and it's not clear that this will be any more noisy unless these particular individuals who live there are more noisy than other people. So besides, we don't regulate that anyway. So, I mean, I really don't think it's objectionable. I don't think it's going to cause any harm to this building.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree. I think this is a informal rear facade. We allow a lot of flexibility with them. I think the normal kind of environment of a rear yard is kind of ad hoc, and that's part of the charm. And I don't think this is out of tune with that.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Appropriate.
Okay, Vice Chair Bland.
Yeah, I think the precedent's been set already by the neighbors, and a 4-foot deep balcony certainly can't house very many people, if more than 1 or 2. So if they're noisy, that's just part of life in New York, I guess, but not a congregation. So I don't think it should be a deterrent to the neighbors as well. But it is a rear facade, and I think again, this is their appurtenance is already in the back, so it's fine.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
First, I just want to say that it's unbelievable to me how remarkably intact this donut is. It's extraordinary. And what's being proposed here doesn't change it in any way. I agree with my fellow commissioners about no visibility. This is very modest. There's a fire escape close by, and people have decks on their first floor extensions, which provide a lot more space and opportunity for noise. But everybody has wonderfully sized backyards that this applicant and others will be able to continue to enjoy, and I can wholeheartedly approve this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu,
Appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Appropriate.
and Commissioner Master.
I agree, it's appropriate.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement. Commissioner Chapin, would you make the motion?
Sure. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Brooklyn, LPC 25-01205, 192 McDonough Street, Stuyvesant Heights Historic District, Block 1856, Lot 26. A French neo-Gothic style row house designed by Arthur Taylor and built in 1888. Application is constructed balcony at the rear facade. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Stuyvesant Heights Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features, that the proposed balcony installation at the rear facade will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, that rear facades of other buildings in the block have projecting elements that were added over time, including decks, fire escapes, and oriel windows. Therefore, the proposed balcony will be in keeping with this varied context, that the metal balcony will be simply designed and of a modest scale, and the open quality of the installation will not overwhelm the rear facade, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, 9 opposed. The motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 24-10610, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1143, Lot 67, 123 St. Mark's Avenue in the Prospect Heights Historic District. This is an Italianate style row house designed by John D. Porter and built in 1870 to 72. The application is to alter masonry openings at the rear facade and construct a rear yard addition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Wait, this is going on. So. Okay. Sorry. Good morning, commissioners and staff members. I'd like to present to you today a rear enlargement.
Please state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Alexander Stoltz. I'm the architect of record for this job, SADA Architecture. Today, I would like to propose to you a work to the rear of a building in the Prospect Heights Historic District at 123 St. Mark's Avenue. Just quickly, just to explain, because the owners cannot be here. She had a jury duty and really wants me to express this to you, that this is an enlargement for owners that have been there for 20, 25 years and raised a family. They live in their upper triplex of a 4-story building, and a typical, Brooklyn story of where they want to move downstairs and age in place. And they're used to living in an upper triplex. They're going to move downstairs and rent out. The upper part is the backstory. They wanted me to express that to you, so I'll just say that as we go along. This is a location in the Prospect Heights Historic District in the tax lot photo. This is an extraordinarily deep lot. This is 147 feet deep, taken from the front facade, and not even from before that. So it is a remarkably deep area that has a current one-story rear enlargement. We are going to proposing to take down the rear enlargement. This is a slide just showing that you can tell that what we are proposing is going to be an 85-foot, in the end, an 85-foot still rear yard. So this is remarkably deep for even this area. And this is showing some of the vantage points that are at issue here. Not only, again, are we doing the one-story? It's only a basement one-story rear enlargement. We are proposing to change the windows on the parlor floor, which I will go over with you. These are the vantage points. One is from Carlton, and if you were to look back at this, we have, you could see vantage point 1 is basically oblique from Carlton. Vantage point 2 is non-visible. Vantage point 3 is partially visible for the parlor floor only. And I will illustrate that to you. Vantage point 1 is on the left. Vantage point 2 is non-visible. And vantage point 3 is partial visibility of the parlor floor seasonably. Existing conditions has a one-story rear addition, very old, with a wooden deck, which obviously is not permitted. As you can see, as we pull out, there is a large addition on the right, large two-story historic 26 feet deep rear enlargement on the right as you're looking at it from the back. Plan detail showing about the enlargement. We are proposing an 18-foot enlargement, full width, with a deck on the top. So nothing on the parlor level. The parlor level windows we are proposing to be revised for a larger kitchen. Now, I just want to express, because this is why I wanted to, I'm happy to go back. There's a beautiful, the house has just incredible moldings on the inside. So we're expressing, we want to preserve that and actually enlarge the moldings. The owners are very concerned with the historic. And I'm only showing you the interior just to show you why we are redoing the back very carefully, because we need to make sure that that molding in that kitchen area is not diminished or destroyed, which could easily happen when you propose a window enlargement. These are the materials of the rear that we are proposing, aluminum and a wood back. Anybody wants me to go slower, I will. We did a mock-up as required. It's very overgrown in the back. It's one story, and then the upper story is showing for the railing only. So the one-story netting is where we would have the bulk. This is the window enlargement at the back on the parlor floor. It's very clearly not visible for the one-story rear enlargement. And there's just no visibility today with today's foliage. But if you look back at the original photo that I showed you, it is visible, seasonably, minimally visible. That's the term. Right.
And
happy
it's
to
just
go
the
back.
parlor floor window that's minimally seasonably
Exactly.
visible.
Could
Okay.
you show us those windows again? You just showed it. Think.
Do you have a rear elevation or?
But is there an actual elevation? Not just drawing.
Just a moment. Yes, there is. Sorry, I went through it very quickly, because I wanted to show you the interior.
There we go.
So it seems like the tape out doesn't match this drawing. I'm confused because when I look at the left, it looks like you retained the existing opening of the window.
We lowered the window slightly because, as I said, I was trying.
That drawing
This
doesn't match your tape.
sure. I'm sorry, it's not the fastest. But it should. And as I mentioned, though, I wanted to bring it down because we have to do a lot of shoring to make sure that the facade would be very, very solid when they put the additional steel to reinforce it. I wanted to make sure there was nothing that would destroy the molding on the interior.
So.
Okay, I'm troubled by that too. Explain that more. I
Sure.
mean,
Okay.
why
So-
can't you just keep the lintels where they are and,
The height.
yeah,
We could. I was just concerned that if we were all the way up here, we're gonna put two pieces of steel, which would have to be two I-beams.
right?
And we'd be getting fairly close to the molding, which is up here. And I was concerned that that steel, the
Yeah.
shoring. even for
Yeah, no,
the-
I get it. Can you show the interior again?
Yeah. Is it before? No, I'm sorry, before this. Before this, right? Also, there's a AC. Well, you have an air conditioning system. That can be moved. Sorry, here we are. Yeah, so I'm concerned if we put steel right here, that it's gonna get very close to this molding. That's my concern.
It's the molding made of.
That's plastic.
And are you keeping that split system unit or whatever that unit is?
We were gonna keep the split system too.
So we're trying to stay under that.
That was the idea from the, yeah.
That,
But are you proposing to infill brick on the window side? Because again, the tape out is a go
Yeah.
existing. masonry.
We were going to do brick and keep
You're
it,
gonna fill in like a white.
yes.
Wouldn't that alter this experience?
Let me go back to that elevation for you. To the tape out.
we changed the whole feeling of the space too. It's very,
I mean, we're talking about 8 inches. If we were to raise it, we can, maybe 12 inches.
Also to the left, on the left.
Oh, to the left?
Tape doesn't go-
Well, that, we are planning a new kitchen there, so that was the idea, is that there's going to be millwork on the interior.
So they want to keep the cornice molding, but not the windows.
The molding around the windows and the interior space.
We want to keep that molding. We want the molding to go around it. That's what the owner wanted. So there is a certain depth. The molding is quite substantial on the interior.
So you would extend the window molding around across the top and keep it on the two sides?
Yes, yeah. That's the intention of the interior, and I know that's not that's why I'm doing this is my.
But is your tape on the side aligning with the window on the side?
No, but we would be changing the entire opening.
I see.
They're gonna infill some of that window.
Then on the if you're keeping the window moldings on the inside, which by the way are not under our jurisdiction, but
Right.
just trying to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah,
the
I
intent, would you sort of take that molding off and then just put it back on
Yes.
around
Yeah,
the
we've done this
new
before.
opening?
You can pull it right off and you can
Okay.
redo it. Good carpenters can match it.
Stay with the crown molding above, it's the same.
Well, the crown is a beautiful plaster.
But they can't, I mean, we restored a lot of very interesting historical detail in buildings, that seems pretty beneficial. It might want to be done regardless, just to protect people, there's a lot of work we've done on that facade.
Yeah.
Regardless.
So, I mean, I think in some ways we're getting a little beyond
Yeah.
our jurisdiction in designing this. Because we don't regulate the interior and we do approve a variety of window types, particularly at the parlor floor on non-visible rear facades. But this does have some oblique seasonal,
Yeah.
minimal visibility. So I guess that's trying to sort of understand that, how you'd see that in that oblique view. All right, any other questions? All right, let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one remote participant with their hand raised, that being Mary Shuford. Mary Shuford, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Hello, Mary Shuford, are you with us?
I was muted. Sorry.
Not a problem. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I am testifying on behalf of the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council about 120, the COA for 123 St. Mark's Avenue. Essentially, we have reviewed the proposal, the application, and it is as described by the architect. And Prospect Heights has, because the size and massing of the new additions are consistent with existing extensions within the donut, although proportions of the new addition will be minimally visible from Bergen Street, we have no objection to this application.
Oh, thank you so much for your testimony. Okay. I do not see any additional hands raised. So I will note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 8 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay. All right. So it seems we have supportive testimony. So I think there isn't much to respond to, but if you want to, maybe if you sort of zoom out a little bit and show us the context, it can help the commissioners visualize the proposed rear elevation within that context.
I would love to, but it's not responding.
Okay. Well, actually, let's bring handouts. So
yes,
if you all want to. Yeah, I see. There are multiple, it's just 2 pages. Interested. So it shows the view from the street, which again is very hard to see. So it's hard to know if the context has a variety of windows, but if commissioners, if there are no questions, maybe we should move to our discussion. All right, so let's do that. Let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So
Thank you. Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing is closed. So this is a proposal for a 1-story rear yard addition in an unusually large or deep rear yard. So there's still, I think, was 85-foot rear yard remaining. The addition doesn't project out as far as other additions within the block. And then above that, they're proposing to combine masonry openings to create a new masonry opening that would have a door and a window. And so I think we've focused a lot on the interior because you presented it to us. But I think, stepping back, we have to kind of think about what our role is here and what we've approved in the past. And we certainly have approved a variety of window configurations and combinations in rear yards. This particular one has some visibility. It's an oblique view, which is seasonally visible, which you can see in the handouts. And you would not see the rear yard addition, as I understand it, but you might catch a bit of the parlor floor. So we'll begin our discussion on that. Commissioner, let me see, where do I want to go? Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Yeah. Okay. So I think the addition is fine. I'll be interested what my fellow commissioners say, but I think we should probably keep the same head height of the windows and not do any infill, basically. We can cut to make the opening larger and down so that there's access, but it should be possible to do that hopefully without damaging the molding, but one can also, if there's any damage to the molding, document it and repair it as needed.
Okay, Vice Chair Bland.
Yeah, that's my position, I think, as well. Certainly no problem with the addition itself. You know, almost every Tuesday, we look at ways that the bottom two floors of a brownstone have been changed, and often very elegantly, often with a lot of glass that we sort of, and the neighbors all, have to be careful about. But the problem for me on this one now is what's being proposed looks like what might have been done before designation with no elegance or skill or style. It just looks haphazard, I guess. There's no style to it. So that's what brings me back. It's the design itself that's the problem. So I'm back in the same position, but maybe for slightly different reasons, that we should honor that the existing doors and lintels and heights and so forth in a more in a way that respects all that a little bit more. I do appreciate seeing the interior, gorgeous interior. I understand now what motivated you. I'm all for that, but I think with a little more effort, you're able to still retain that beautiful interior or interpret it in a slightly new way with all those moldings to retain what you want to retain from the interior. But I can't myself vote for the way it's being expressed on the exterior right now.
But could if it matched the head height. Yes. Okay. Commissioner Lutfi.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Ginsburg's comments.
Commissioner Chu.
I'm also in agreement, and I will echo Fred's comment too. For me, it's two things. It's aesthetic because it feel like the proposed opening is not in proportion to the facade. And the other is because of the fabric of the building. If you were to retain sense of existing openings, there's actually less damage, and you won't even notice any strange infill in that opening. It'll retain the existing brick on the openings, the existing wall that's remaining. Yep.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
I agree with my fellow commissioners, but it's interesting when I saw the interior elevations, the pictures of the interiors, I thought, gee, it's going to show us what it's going to look like. But he did not. And I think that needs some work. You should have, if you're going to show the interior, show us why you're doing what you're doing and how it affects the interior.
Great. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I also agree with my fellow commissioners on this. Excuse me.
All right, Commissioner Goldblum.
No disagreement. I think we have to, the addition's fine. The windows should be modified so that the head height can be retained, and the jamb should also be retained on the left side.
Okay, and Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I agree with the other commissioners' comments.
Okay. All right, so I think we'll do a motion to approve it with that modification. Thanks.
Got it.
Okay.
So we're gonna take it without seeing it?
Yeah, we're going to approve it. So it'll still be a opening with a window and a door. It'll just maintain the head height and the outer jamb, which I think is very consistent with the kinds of things we've approved elsewhere.
Absolutely. Usually we get to see that, but that's all right.
Okay.
I'm sure the great staff will have our eyes set.
With regards to LPC 24-10610, 123 St. Mark's Avenue, Prospect Heights Historic District. An Italianate style row house designed by John V. Porter and built in 1870-1872. Application is to alter the masonry opening at the rear facade and construct a rear yard addition. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Borum Hill Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the modified window and door opening at the parlor level will be only minimally visible at a distance, and the proposed rear yard addition will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. That the one-story addition will be modest in scale and similar in height and depth to other existing within the block. That the simple massing, metal windows and doors, wood cladding will be in keeping with the materiality, scale, and character of secondary facades found at row houses within the block and historic district. And the proposed work will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of the building in the Borum Hill Historic District. However, the openings on the parlor floor both lower the head height and have infill on one side that affect the proportions and look of the rear facade. I recommend working with staff that no infill be done, that the head height remain the same, and that that there will be some masonry removed, but no infill done.
Right, and maintain the head and the jamb.
Right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, John.
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
None in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Please continue to work with the staff on that. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to the next item, public hearing item number 4, LPC 23-04171, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 8029, Lot 3, 6 Beverly Road in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a freestanding colonial revival style house designed by William H. Van Steenberg and built in 1912. The application is to construct an addition and a deck and replace windows.
Morning, Commissioners, Lisa Schaefer, Preservation Staff. The application for 6 Beverly Road is to construct a porch at the side facade, a new deck at the side and rear facades, and to install aluminum clad windows. So the new porch will be over here on the side and the deck right behind it. And you can see in the historic photos, there was actually a porch at that location over here. And then this is another view of it. And these are just neighboring houses. And also some work was done on the site without permits, including construction of a retaining wall. However, the wall does meet it conforms with the Douglaston Master Plan, and therefore that will be legalized at staff level. This is the rear of the house where also a deck existed previously, and that was removed, and it's now boarded up. But I just want you to note that there was some glass doors there and a new window, which you'll see later will be put in its place. Just another view. So here on the bottom, that is the proposed porch. And it will be similar in design to the historic porch. And in a side elevation, and the new deck will have a railing which will match the railing on the porch, which is based on the rear, on the historic railing. And then here at the rear, where there was the sliding doors, there's now going to be an oriel window. And some details of the proposed porch with the post and railing, and then behind it will be screening And just a photo montage of the new porch and deck. And then the proposed aluminum clad windows, which will match the configuration, operation, details of the historic windows. And that's the proposal.
All right,
And
thank you.
There's a bunch of work being done, which is restorative and complies with the master plan and will be reviewed at staff level.
All right, thanks, Lisa. All right, commissioners, any questions? All right, let's see. Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So was the old porch removed after designation?
No, prior to
Okay.
designation.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
What page is this? A009. And there was this wood frame with a you have a screened in porch, right? At that side, at the proposed west side elevation. And then you have a screened in porch, new screened in patio that matches 1940 stack map 80002. Is there a wall behind that, or is it's
Oh, sorry.
it's a the screened in porch hits the column, right?
The new.
The screens.
It lines up with the column of the
So Lisa, maybe the section that shows where the screens are right behind the columns. So they
Yeah.
seem to go from the ceiling to the floor right behind the columns.
Yeah, so
and
they're
the railing.
attached at the base and capital at the rear part of the posts.
Also, they're in back of the column, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I understand.
Okay, any other questions? Vice Chair Bland.
Could you just show us the oriel window again? Forgot. Yeah,
Let me show you the.
is it
plan.
just in the elevation or is it somewhere else?
So here in the plan, it's over here. So in elevation, you can't tell it's an oriel. You can't tell it's projecting in the.
So it projects.
It projects.
Like an oriel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's at the back of the house.
It's at the rear.
It is visible. That's
The rear-
besides any master plan implications, it's visible, and that's why we're looking at it as well.
Because in this district, you have views, around the buildings. Lisa, is there a photo of that rear facade as you see it from the street?
Yeah, I don't know if it's from the street, but there's. Yeah, that's the rear. It's not taken from the street, but it's completely open because it's a corner lot. You can see behind it, there's nothing there.
Okay. All right. And are there any other oriel windows on the building or is it?
There are bay windows on the building.
Okay. Yeah. Are they also, so is it
They go all the way down to the ground.
they go down to the ground?
Yes.
Three-sided though as well.
They're though square rather than, they don't have the canted.
I see.
They're little projections, do it in the front,
Those are they, so they're squared
Yes.
projections. Okay. And on the back.
And also on the back of the
oriel.
facade.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Just to clarify.
Commissioner Goldblum.
The scope of the work, which I assume is being handled at staff level, is the removal of the clapboards, the removal of the, I assume that it's fake stone,
Yes,
and the installation of new cedar shingles
yes,
and new trim also?
yes.
Super, thanks.
Right. And so the scope for us is the reintroduction of a porch that would have a railing on top that would match the historic railing, but they also want that railing at the bottom and the deck behind it and the oriel window and the aluminum clad wood windows. Okay. All right, let's see if there's any testimony. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item? All right, noting that there isn't, I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any hands raised for this item. If you'd like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, there are still no hands raised. So I will note for the record that Queens Community Board 11 recommends approval with noted suggestions regarding the shutters, porch screens, lattice skirting, window trim, roof, sawdufts and eaves, and the front stoop railing. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay. So would you like to say anything at this point or respond to the community board suggestions? If you do it, just come up to the microphone because the people on Zoom can't hear you unless you speak into the microphone and state your name for the
My name
record.
is John Tessaris. My office was retained to get the letter of appropriateness. Our client is, deeply passionate about this house to restore it back to what it was, back from when it was constructed. It's been a long process, so they're very anxious, to get in there. And it's a beautiful house. I mean, the neighborhood's beautiful. So they welcome suggestions. Lisa's been, great with everything. So that's pretty much what the client wanted us to say.
All right, any final questions, commissioners? Yeah, okay, let's begin our discussion then. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So again, this is, there's a lot of restoration work happening here. The proposal before us is to restore a porch that had been removed prior to designation or the presence of a porch. That would have a railing that would match the historic railing, which includes actually replacing the railing on the addition on the other side to match. And then the railing at the lower level of the addition of the porch as well would match that detail. The proposal also includes the deck behind it, the oriel window and aluminum clad wood windows throughout, which is a type of window we have approved in this historic district, given the setback from the street that many of these houses have. So we'll begin our discussion. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start?
Sure. Really a very majestic house that's been badly treated over time, with an owner apparently who has passion to restore its 1912 original, more or less original look. So I think we have a very a positive review of all of this from my point of view. As we've said, the windows being replaced with wood clad seem fine and consistent with the setbacks. I think the new porch is terrific. And the oriel window, which I noted as some of the staff had some issues with, I don't think I do have an issue with it. It seems fine to me. It's in the rear of the house. It's not exactly like the other windows, but it's also not on the same facades. So I'm okay with it as is, and laud really the whole presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
Yeah, I concur with a lot of what Fred said. It's the applicant has done a really wonderful job here, and the additions and changes with, first of all, with the deck are, work very well with the character of the house, and the porch with its wood railings also mix well. I think as Fred said, the aluminum clad windows, we approve them all the time. I would recommend that the oriel window be replaced so that it really looks more uniform with the other windows on the facade in terms of size and shape, and it'll just be like a little tweak that will tie it together very nicely.
Thank you, Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both my fellow commissioners. I do think Jeannie's comment, I support. It's a minor change and it would bring consistency to all your windows. It's just the profile and the plan configuration. I think everything else being proposed is appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson.
I think they did a marvelous job. They took a simple volume, and at the end of it, they created this elegant project that the last picture of it is just beautifully done with the white trim. It's just beautifully done.
Do you have an opinion on the oriel at the rear facade?
I think it's fine.
Okay. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree with other commissioners. It's very nice to see the restoration of this building, and I think the porch, the deck, the windows are all fine. I can also approve it as presented. I don't think it's necessary to make that change to the windows, the oriel windows.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Thank you. I think that the applicant's desire to do a nice restorative renovation of the house is really wonderful. I do think, though, that the details are where this will succeed or fail. And the drawings right now are not really ready for success. I think that the general idea of the porch is fine. I think that the general approach is totally fine. But I think that the applicant should work carefully with staff on a lot of things like, how do you do a square post under a frieze in a traditional, colonial style house? I would say to look very carefully at the coursing of the shingles. The drawings look like they have a very big, tall course of shingles, which doesn't seem to match what's on the photos. The shutters, the detailing on the appendage on the left side has a lot of really very beautiful detail that could be restored at virtually the same cost as cedar. And it would add immeasurably to the richness of the house. Same thing goes for how you do the screen relative to the posts and all that stuff. In terms of the oriel, I would extend that same logic to the oriel at the back. I think the oriel per se is fine. What I think is troublesome about it is the kind of store-bought, out-of-the-box Marvin window kit nature of it. This house has, is characterized and has its character from its trim. So I think if you gave it the kind of roof, with the detailed little posts that the front bays have, if you gave it an extension, a skirt that went down to the ground, the oriel shape, the bent shape per se, the bay window shape per se, I think is fine. It's okay that it's different at the back, but I think having it feel like it's of a piece with the house would make it a more successful overall endeavor. And I think they just really got to look at the moldings, the details. That's what's going to really make it work.
Right.
How the gutters work.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with a lot of what my fellow commissioners said. I agree with Commissioner Bland that this is approvable, and I think it is looking like a really nice restoration addition, and the applicant should work with staff in working out the details.
All right. Commissioner Master.
Yeah, what a great project. I'm so happy that the applicant is putting so much care into this. I agree that the porch addition is fantastic. The window replacements are fine. In terms of the oriel window, I'm fine with it as presented, although I think that Commissioner Goldblum made some really good suggestions as well. So I think it's appropriate as presented.
Okay, thank you. And I also think that the work is wonderful and it'll be a great restoration of and additions that are very sympathetic and harmonious with the original style. And I am also fine with the oriel being different as it's kind of in the center of the rear facade and on a different facade. But I think that in working with the staff on the details, there can be ways, like as Commissioner Goldblum suggested, at the roof or the base to, in all of the details, to make it sort of relate better to the architectural details on the building. So Vice Chair Bland, shall we do a motion to approve? Oh, you got it. Okay. Motion to approve. And we'll just do a recommendation that the applicant work with the staff on the details. Okay.
Okay, in the matter of LPC 23 04171, 6 Beverly Road in the Douglaston Historic District. This is an application is to construct an addition and deck and replace the windows. Let's see. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Douglaston Historic District. I recommend approval, noting that the removal of the deck will not eliminate any significant protected features from the rear of the house, that the size and location and presence of the new deck will be harmonious with the scale and architectural character of the house, that the proposed porch with decorative wood railings will closely approximate historic porch that was originally in this location and will be harmonious with the house in terms of materials, details, and finishes. That the historic windows and change in materials will not be discernible from the street. That the proposed work will not detract from the special historic and architectural character of the house or the historic district. And I recommend that the applicant work closely with staff, particularly perhaps on the oriel window, but on all aspects of this to achieve a salubrious result.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thanks. John?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
and Commissioner Master.
Aye.
None in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved, but please continue to work with the staff on the details for all aspects of it. Okay, we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-08053, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 517, Lot 11, 153 to 159 Sullivan Street in the Sullivan Thompson Historic District. This is a Romanesque revival style church building designed by Arthur Crooks, built in 1886 to 88. The application is to install HVAC equipment and planters, relocate and replace statuary, and install signage.
Morning. My name is Janine Smith. I'm with Remkes Consulting. We're here on behalf of St. Anthony of Padua Church, located at 155 Sullivan Street in the Sullivan Thompson Historic District. So just going to jump in. I know it's before lunch, so I won't take up too much of your time. All right. So like I said, building located right on West Houston Street and Sullivan Street, right at the corner. It's going to be notable that within our presentation, we did include a lot of historic information, so feel free to read through it when you have time, but I'm going to skip over most of it. All right, so our proposed scope of work is multi-pronged. The primary issues are all located within the courtyard facing West Houston Street. We're looking to remove the existing statue base, relocate it slightly, and expand that new base to include a grotto, which we'll get into a little bit later. The courtyard itself, we're looking to replace the existing asphalt with a new stone paving, as well as redo the supplemental concrete walkways and curbs. The The HVAC units that have been installed in that courtyard, we're looking to legalize them, as well as install a planter screen to help diminish their visual impact. And we're also looking to install a new sign identifying the church at the elevator bulkhead. So just, I'm going to skip most of this, but again, the church goes back to 1888 and is the longest standing Italian Catholic church in the city. It's notable that the facade that the courtyard fronts is actually an accidental facade. When the subway line was put through in the 1930s, widening West Houston Street, you know, the lots adjacent to our church were knocked down. And as a result, we have a now primary and prominent facade that was never intended to function as it does. Just some quick photos and we'll move along quickly. Do want to stop here as this image here is relevant to our sign. You can see that in this 1966 photo, there is a sign located just at the corner, which is the area that the elevator bulkhead currently stands. We're not totally sure exactly when that bulkhead went in. We know that it went in sometime after this photo and before 1990, but you know, unclear exactly when. So that location of the sign is actually essentially where we're requesting to put our new sign. Just gonna, again, move through most of this quickly, but you can see the statue here in the center. That's Our Lady of Fatima with her supplemental statues, the children and the lamb. This was put in 1976 and has kind of had a troubled history since. We're gonna skip most of this. She's got some friends there as well. But here we come to our first issue, the statue base itself. So we did see some vandalism with the statue herself, as well as the base. And that base has continued to crumble and exhibit further damages since. This, was taken last year in October. If you were to walk by today, most of the veneer stones here have actually been removed as the destabilization of the stones kind of created a systemic effect. Take note that as it stands right now, that base is actually kind of located smack dab in the middle of the distance between the street and the church facade. That's notable as we are looking to adjust that. The paving right now, as far as we know, the only historic, if you will, paving going back to at least the 60s is this asphalt. It's in rough condition. If we were to look at this from a New York City code standpoint, definitely we've got some trip hazards. And also it's just not facilitating the watershed that we would like to see. So our goal here is to update that. You can also notice that along the church facade itself, we have kind of 2 layers of concrete walkway that right now are creating a nice little trough for rodents to drink water from. So we want to correct all of that. All right. This sign, which was removed in 2021, as far as we know, is the only other historic sign. Again, that's no longer in place. But as you can see, it was kind of impacting the primary facade in a significant manner. I think most of us would agree, not the prettiest thing. So we're proposing something a little different. You can see just to the right of that, there's a relief of St. Anthony, which in and of itself, we believe to be at this point 30 plus years old. So we're looking to just move that slightly to the side and install the signage alongside it. You can note just below it, there is a lighting fixture. We're just looking to update that as well. All right, so as we said, this is the existing plan. You can see, again, the statue base located not just in the middle of it, but kind of toward the front gate. So we're looking to move that back. And then on the far, would that be east side, the far east side of the lot, the 2 HVAC units that were installed in 2021. Our understanding is that they were put in the middle of the LPC application process that was under former management with a different engineer. So, all right. And all right. So what exactly are we proposing? So, as you can see from the plan here, we're looking to take that base, enlarge it, move it back in so that, Our Lady of Fatima is in line with her, St. Alphonsus and Padre Pio, as well as center that so that the base itself is kind of not impacting any one window more than any other. That also allows for a kind of a larger courtyard area to be used. Some of you may recognize this church from the seasonal creche that goes up, during the Christmas season. That itself we know has been running for 60 or 70 years. We want to continue that tradition and also just make it kind of easier to enjoy and install. Like we said, the sign, we're proposing to install it at the bulkhead, the elevator bulkhead, and then the HVAC, we're looking to, again, legalize, keep in place, and install some planters that would kind of help minimize, the effect of the HVAC. Lastly, we've worked with the community board on kind of what they would like this to look like, and they put forward that they would really enjoy a bluestone courtyard here, and in our opinion that kind of would help to ground the church with its stone base against the site. So this will all kind of look like this, except realistic, right? So as you can see in the far left side of the image, the trees that we're looking to put in, they are evergreen trees. They do kind of have a maximum height. They're a dwarf spruce variety. They get to about the height of the HVAC. The base itself may be a little bit hard to tell from this image, but it is notably taller. Our intention there, kind of multifaceted, and we'll get into that in a moment, and also includes a grotto, which goes back to Our Lady of Fatima's historic presentation. And then lastly, the adjustment of the placement of the relief and the new signage and replacement light fixture at the bulkhead. So as we said before, in working with the community board, we had originally said we just update the asphalt, but the community board, was strong-minded, and we came to agree with them that a bluestone courtyard would be lovely here. So if you guys are interested in how we intend to achieve that, we've provided that information here. But again, the big goals here is providing adequate walk space that is safe and code compliant and adds adequate drainage for the site. Again, we noted earlier when we started that Our Lady of Fatima has had kind of a troubled history, and we have some vandalism that has happened that we have on camera in 2017. Luckily, she was mostly still intact, a little worse for wear, but she continued to serve. But just last year, unfortunately, the worst has happened, and she was not only toppled, cut off at the ankles, but also beheaded, and her head was carried off. A little bit shocking, definitely, but you can see the need for what we're proposing. So again, the goal here with the base is by raising it, we're looking to add just a little bit of physical deterrent. We're going from a 2-foot tall base to a 5-foot tall base. So then just a little upper body strength that I certainly don't have just to get up there. And then also by centralizing it, by lighting it up, by giving it height, we are also providing a little bit of visual deterrent in that if you try to do something, you'll be seen by all of West Houston. Again, just a quick rendering as to what that'll look like. As you can see, again, much taller, centralized between the two windows, and then presented. You can note that that stone grotto presented within the historic traditional Catholic presentation of Our Lady of Fatima. All right. Here's an example. Our proposal here is to take the previous design aesthetic of the base, that stone veneer, and carry that through to the new one. So kind of matching those stones and doing the entire grotto and base out of it. All right, onto the sign. You know, we've kind of touched on this, but the sign is as close to the 1966 sign that we can get with the current issue, and also avoids the overpowering nature of the sign we know that was installed in the 80s. So yep, that's really that. As the lighting again here, all of this was installed, you know, before designation. Well, really everything here has been since before designation. But we're gonna just take and update that sign. Right now, it barely illuminates St. Anthony as is. So HVAC. All right, like again, like we said, our understanding is that there was a application put through in 2021 or shortly there before that was I don't believe it was actually rejected. It just wasn't completed, and the HVAC units went in instead. So the reason why we're proposing to keep them in place, you know, outside of the realities of money, is just simply this is the only place on the tax lot, within the tax lot, that these units can exist. The only other place, the only other flat area we could install it would be the top of that bulkhead that we just took a look at, which is right on the corner of Thompson and West Houston Street. So they would even be, in our opinion, more visible in that location. There is a I'm trying to preemptively answer any questions. There is a courtyard on the south side of the church. However, that is not accessible from the church for maintenance, etc. Right now, you would have to go through a neighboring lot in order to access the back alley to access that courtyard. So we understand that they're not pretty and they're on now a primary facade. So our goal here is to kind of pick up what has been done in this courtyard going back to when it's been exposed. So in the previous photos, we've seen trees, we've seen different plantings. The most recent version of that in 2019 has been these larger trees, these larger shrubbery within planters within the courtyard. So we're looking to kind of take that and reestablish that with purpose around the machine, still giving access for you know, workers against that primary facade, but you know, blocking it off from most view. And that's kind of everything. Any questions?
All right, great. Thank you very much. It was a very thorough presentation. Questions, Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Also, thank you. Very thorough and very precise. And I think you may have answered a lot of questions through just your very detailed presentation. I just wanted to know, what is the increase in height of the statue?
Sure.
I see a 2-foot increase in diameter.
Yes, so we expanded it a bit width-wise, but we've also adjusted. I don't believe we have the existing.
The existing is like this 2-step one. You have to go up to the front to the mic if you want to.
Yeah, we have.
This is Michael. He's my colleague. Thanks.
So if you can see here, the existing base, it was a 2-level with Fatima on the upper level. The lower level is just under 2 feet. Like you can literally just step on it, which is why we had proposed putting the lowest level to at least 5 feet now. So now you're, instead of something you could step on, you're looking at something about roughly this tall.
Well, roughly my height.
Yeah.
And a bit of the grotto surround of it.
Right, and that grotto goes up to, I believe the tallest height is 14 feet, which is still below the height of the sill of the windows.
Of the window.
Of the stained glass windows.
It is below.
But we are locating it again between 2 windows as to not, you know, take away from the impact of the windows.
Okay. And just, can the public access the gateway to go into this space?
The gateway right now is on West Houston, so it is accessible. The intention, however, is for the courtyard to be accessed by parishioners.
Right. Okay. And then last question is the church had an addition of this brick volume with the sculptural piece and the sign. later. Do we know when that was added?
Uh,
There's, if you look at the facade on.
I think it's the
house-
elevator bulkhead.
There's where you want to put the sign.
I think added sometime after the 1930s, right? When
So, sorry, yes, the elevator bulkhead here, we believe this, I'm sorry, we believe this was added in 1980, is that correct?
oh, 19.
1980.
19, and that's where you had a precedent of the signage there. That's.
I'm sorry, the precedent of signage was in the 1966 photo, and there was just a little bit of
Is there a
path
photo of
finding.
that? I didn't see a photo.
So
Oh.
if you just go here, it's next to the bay closest to the street.
So it predates the bulkhead. that was on
Yeah,
the
I
south
see.
corner.
Okay. I understand now.
All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
A great urban concept, this statue park, as I call it. I have a question on proposed courtyard elevation. Is there any green in it at all? Only covered up with mechanical equipment, or there's more green in that
Are
courtyard?
there other plantings in the courtyard?
At present, there isn't, but the intention is to return it to its previous state, which was filled with greenery, basically the entirety of its existence that we know of. So yes, again, that wouldn't be the only greenery in it just surrounding the HVAC, but that would be more transitory, seasonal placements, temporary.
The concept
planters.
now is a hard courtyard, hard material,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Right.
And,
But it sounds like they'll have some plants,
give
potted
plant,
plants
but
or
to
something
cover the
elsewhere.
equipment,
Yeah.
which is a different language.
This is Father Michael Corsioni.
Hi, I'm the pastor.
Hi.
This is the last 2 years now. The reason why we took all of that stuff out, the rats. We were getting tickets every other month for harboring the rats. And all the restaurants were feeding them and we were harboring. So I said, okay, close them up. So all of those plants that were up there, even the elevated one, they were digging under them.
Wow.
So they're digging under, when we pulled up the hedges, the hedges came right out by hand. Because the rats had eaten underneath that. They were scaffolding up there for 3 years. So all of that stuff was overgrown. Once the scaffolding came down, I took out the bushes and the rats took off. And I started getting citations for those planters. And they said, you got to do something about those planters. I had to take them out because I was getting citations from the city because I was harboring the rats.
I think it's
sinners, yes, but not rats.
All right, thank you.
I think it's a great idea that it's a hardscape. I think it's beautiful as a hardscape.
Yeah.
And I was worried about this, the planted portion of it. Does it have access for people to go in there during the day? People can go in and look at the statues and touch them. It is open.
There's two main gate, there's a main gate that right in the center of Fatima right now, there's a main gate that opens, it's probably about 10 feet wide. That people have access to when we want to use that. There's also one by the elevator also that opens up either inwardly or outwardly, so people can access that whole area too. My thing is to get the community board had suggested that we have put some benches in there, put some more trees in there and things like that. And that's something that we have to really think about. But again, as far as this part, we want to get this part done first. And then we'll start putting on plants and things like that. Again, not being a harbor for any of the creatures in the neighborhood.
I think it's a great idea, great urban idea.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? And let me just check with Angie. Okay. We're going to see if we have public testimony and we'll come back to you. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Not seeing anyone. I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. Okay. Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one person with their hand. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Chair Carroll. My name is Mark Giller. I am actually the district manager of Community Board 2, and I'm also a former chair of Community Board 7, and I'm here in neither capacity. You've just got me for today. I completely defer to CB7's resolution. I'm sorry, CB2's resolution on this. I get that wrong all the time. But I'm moved to be here in a personal capacity because I've witnessed in some respects the sincerity of the overall effort. And my personal belief is that while you have a portion of the renovation and restoration of this wonderful building in front of you, it should be viewed in the context of the entire project, which is remarkable. The application is part of a multi-year plan, and it is attempting to restore for future generations that which has been benefiting the Soho and Greenwich Village neighborhoods for the last several generations. And it seeks to do the near impossible, which is to restore it both for use as a sacred site for worship, for those purposes, but also for community efforts and community access as well. The ADA accessibility, which I think was sensitively done many years ago, is evidence of that, as well as the efforts to right the wrongs that were victims of the vandalism. And so the sincerity of the effort and the authenticity of the work that has been done and that's proposed before you speaks to an intention to honor that which is important to us who believe strongly in the preservation of our historic fabric. I have no idea what the budget of this whole thing would be, but it's got to be staggering. And so that also speaks of a commitment beyond just this parish to the future of this building. In previous appearances before this commission, I have lamented some churches who have fallen on hard times and are not able to maintain their buildings, and celebrated those that can. I think that this is an opportunity to do the latter, and so I commend to you the application that's before you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one person with their hand raised in the attendees list, that being Dina Tass-Winter from Village Preservation. Dina Tass-Winter, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Carroll, commissioners, and staff. I was speaking so quickly this morning, I didn't have the chance to say it, but it's really nice to get to see you and speak to you all again. Anyway, I'm Dina Tass-Winter, and I'm speaking here on behalf of Village Preservation. Village Preservation supports this thoughtful proposal. We are pleased to see the Church of St. Anthony of Padua taking steps to preserve their courtyard and protect their statuary. This church is a cornerstone institution of the Sullivan-Thompson Historic District and of the neighborhood, and we urge LPC to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the planter with evergreens to mask the HVAC equipment, approval of the shrine provided that it is covered in a natural stone that is in harmony with the rusticated stone base of the north facade on the nave, similar to the pictures of historic shrines provided with the application. Approval of the paving of the garden provided that it is in a natural stone that is in harmony. I think I repeated it. Oh, no, that is in harmony with the rusticated stone base of the north facade of the nave. Approval of the modifications to the fence to provide ADA access to the garden, and approval to the relief, the lettering, and lighting fixture on the tower. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you very much. And Dina, it's great to see you as well. So I'm happy to have you here today. Right. So we've had largely supportive testimony, but is there anything else you'd like to say before we move to our discussion? Anything else you'd like to add? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you for such a clear presentation. All right. We'll move. Yes, please come up.
In order to build on to the plants and things like that, I'll obviously have to, that's something that we'll have to add on a little bit later on once this work is done. That's something that we'll come back to, correct? And I have to build Yes, Janine,
Right,
yes.
to the extent
what we have
that
to do.
any planters are not really planters you can pick up and move easily, we would review them and work with you on that.
Okay, so there would be like permanent ones. Yeah, they would have to be, and they would have to be tall. Okay, again, we're not, we're not a hotel for the rodents. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, so we'll move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we have, I think, sort of 4 components to this application. One is to replace the paving in the courtyard to address drainage issues and to upgrade the materials. So that would include bluestone in the front of it with a walkway behind of concrete, to legalize HVAC units at the far eastern end of the courtyard that would be concealed from view by evergreens in planters, and to replace the base and shift the location and setting for the statuary in the center of the courtyard to help elevate it, protect it from vandalism, and to install signage at the elevator bulkhead by shifting the statuary slightly there and adding a light fixture to underneath the statue, the relief and the signage. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas of work. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you start this one?
When I looked at this project, I got extremely excited by it because it reminded me of my trip to Italy and Greece, and the idea of a place where statues were gathered and could walk by and see these beautiful statues of the past. And I particularly liked the history of the statues from where they came from, how they arrived at this place. And I thought that the materiality that they were using in the proposed courtyard was a beautiful kind of base for the statue. And I think everything they have done, proposed, is really well done. Like, the only issue I have is the hard courtyard, and I thought that was appropriate. And I thought that the mechanical equipment being covered by plant was inappropriate. I think they should have made it a hardscape also, just like a piece of sculpture, just something that would just be there instead of having the plant material. And minor design issues, but something the platform itself should have been elevated a bit just to give it take it off the ground plane, make it something higher, you know. But all in all, it's really well done. The signage, I think, was just loved the way they placed it. It just kind of fit in just right. All in all, I think it's a very sensitive and project. Could take a little bit more design if you wanted to take it up to another level. But if it stays at this level, it's good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
I think it's very appropriate, and I will leave it to the architects on the panel if there are further suggestions they want to make. But I think that moving the statues is done appropriately. The new base in the grotto is fine. The replacing the asphalt paving with the bluestone and the stone paving is an improvement, obviously. And the new walkways and curbs as well, which are just, utilitarian, but, there's no problem in what's being done is from a historic point of view. And I think that screening the HVAC with the planters is going to work fine and be appropriate. And I agree with Commissioner Jefferson that the sign is very nicely placed and both necessary and appropriate. So I have no problem with the proposal and can approve it as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldblum.
Thank you. I think I'm okay with the AC units being in kind of screened off with the landscaping. I did a building around the corner from this a few years ago before it was designated, and I can tell you The contractors complained about the rats every single day, and it was a real problem. So I can certainly understand where they're coming from. I think the signage and the relocation of the sign, the sculpture, excuse me, the relief on the elevator bulkhead is good. That elevator bulkhead's bothered me since it went up in the 80s, but can't do anything about that. And I think kind of putting stuff on it and making it look purposeful will make it less of an eyesore. I think the paving is fine. I would just suggest that they consider making the pieces as large as possible, just for kind of future maintenance considerations. I think that my only concern is with the grotto itself. I mean, the beautiful thing about this building, the thing that's one of the things that's unique and interesting about it is the stone base, and I think that the grotto should try its best to harmonize with that stone base in terms of the kind of stone selected, the way it's laid up. Grottos can be either lovely and rustic or kind of kitschy. And I think that it's all in the masonry and how the masonry is put together. So I think they could work with staff on that. The other thing I would suggest is that, as you can see from this view, the grotto is a little bit wider than the space between the windows. I would suggest they try to keep it to the space between the windows. I think blocking the windows doesn't do anything for the statue, and certainly doesn't improve the visibility of the building. And I yearn for the day when the greenery can come back.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Well, I think this is an excellent proposal. I think there have been some suggestions by other commissioners that may improve it, but I think it's appropriate now. It was also an excellent presentation. And I just have to say the vandalism is horrible, and I comment on that because it just shouldn't happen. But I'm glad you're restoring it.
I agree completely. Vice Chair Bland.
I think my very brilliant commissioners have already expressed what I would express, so I don't need to say that. I'm in favor of everything that's been suggested as appropriate. But since I have the mic, I want to also say that not only was the presentation concise, precise, and many other things, but it was beguiling as well. So thank you for a very wonderful presentation. I really appreciated it. You stand out amongst the many that we have over years and years here. So thank you for that. But also I want to say, since I have the mic for 30 more seconds, that as the past chair and now chair emeritus of the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, did everybody here know that the Western world's earliest botanical garden is in Padua? This is very important to know. And so I'm bringing you that piece of information. So Our Lady of Padua comes not only from a fantastic and gorgeous and important, very important city in Italy, but also it brings us a botanical garden that has been copied and revered around the world. And I visited it recently on a trip to find my Palladian muse, and the garden is in impeccable shape. It goes back to the 1600s. So anyway, I guess my mic should be cut off now.
Commissioner Lutfi.
So I just want to echo the sentiments of my fellow commissioners about the presentation itself. It was excellent in every way, very thorough, very thoughtful, and just well done and comprehensive. So thank you. And I want to thank the parish for its thoughtful approach to how to deal with this problem. And from what we've heard from the community, its approach to just taking care of this and this very important place of worship and community center. So thank you for that. I think I want to say that Our Lady of Fatima is now in her proper place. If you just look at this, at this image here in the center, elevated, she's moved beyond the horrible vandalism and decapitation and is, going to shine as is appropriate. So thank you for doing it in a way that really gives her due. And the taller base sounds like a great idea. And I think you had mentioned that you were going to use stones to match the existing base. So I think that works well. I love the replacing the asphalt with the new base. I think it's very attractive and will help with the drainage. And the legalizing the HVAC and also screening it works well with the plants. And finally, the new sign and its location is very well done. Overall, I mean, I think this is very thoughtful and understated, and it works well, and we'll have like a lovely presence on Houston Street.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners. I think that everything being proposed is appropriate. I will also just add that the care at looking at the human scale, something I'm noticing. I know that, of course, we all know Houston very well. I know that in front of your gate is probably tables and flea market. There's always market. It's like a marketplace all along the street. And now actually you may be able to see the statue because it's always blocked by all this activity. The other thing is the street, Houston was widened. There is probably a building. This is a side facade.
That's right.
It's not the front of the building. And so I think it actually needs something at human scale to address the sidewalk. It's essentially been defaced, and we're dealing with a resultant of what we've done to the cityscape. So very appropriate.
Well, there are 2 years.
Okay. Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I share my fellow commissioners' enthusiasm for the presentation and the project overall. I think it's really well thought out. I find every aspect of this appropriate, and I'm very happy that you've come up with a solution to put Our Lady of Fatima in a grotto, which I think will, deter vandalism and give her a little bit more protection. But I find the whole thing, every aspect appropriate.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a lot of support for this application. We have enough to support to approve it as is today. There were some suggestions made. You're welcome to think about those some more, and as you develop the details and work on the staff with that. But for now, I think we can make a motion to do a straight approval. Are you comfortable with that, Commissioner Jefferson? Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that would be great.
In the matter of LPC 24 08053 153-159 Sullivan Street. Application is to install HVAC equipment and planters, relocate and replace statuary, and install signage. I know that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historical character of the Sullivan Street Historic District. Staff further notes that the Houston Street North facade was designed as a secondary facade and exposed when Houston Street east of 6th Avenue was widened in the early 1930s. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate any or damage any significant architectural features that the non-historic Our Lady of Fatima statue was installed in the 1970s and irreparably damaged in 2017, and that the new statue set on a stone-clad base and within a new grotto would be typical of many similar installation, and its new location within the yard will not obscure any special windows or facade features. That the Houston Street North area has been paved in asphalt since the 1970s. Before designation, the proposed bluestone paving will relate well to the material of the building and will be in keeping with the paving material found throughout the historic district. That the relocation of the existing wall-mounted non-historic bas-relief sculpture and light fixture to an off-centered position to accommodate the proposed signage will not obscure any significant features. And the proposal pin-mounted dimensional metal letters of the new sign would be in keeping with the scale of the bulkhead facade. That the HVAC unit at edge of the areaway fronting Houston Street, which was installed without permits, would be screened by a proposed garden planters, creating a green feature at the end of the otherwise paved areaway. And that the proposed work will not detract from the building or the historic district. There was some critique by the staff to go on, but do I stop there?
Yes, that's it. You can
Stop
stop right there. Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you very much. Thank you. Move to the next item.
Right, next item is public hearing item number 6, LPC 25-00981, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 625, Lot 3, 803 Greenwich Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is an Italianate-style row house built in 1858, and the application is to alter the ground floor of the front facade and install new infill and to modify the rear facade.
My name is Ilya Vilnitz. I'm the architect for the project. This is 803 Greenwich Street. Today, we're here to request approval for the resurfacing of the front facade ground floor with brownstone colored stucco and combining masonry openings at the rear of the building. This is the site in the Greenwich Village Historic District. It's located between Jane Street and West 12th on Greenwich Street. This is the 1940s tax photo along with the designation photo. And here's the historic tax photo side by side with the proposed rendering. There are 3 piers that are existing, this pier right here, this pier right here, and this pier here. The 4th pier here has been approved at staff level to be rebuilt out of brick masonry. And the 2 swing doors on either side have also been approved at staff level, and the garage door is also staff level approval. So here, as part of this presentation, we would like to propose to resurface the 4 piers in brownstone colored stucco. This is our a reference plan from the 1920s that shows a similar configuration of the front facade with the 2 swing doors and a center garage door. We probed the existing piers from the interior to uncover the historic brick masonry behind. We didn't probe the exterior because we believe that the existing cementitious coating has bonded to the brick, and during that probe, we're afraid to damage that historic brick. So we only have that probe of the interior of the building. Here is the rendering side by side with the existing elevation. Under staff level review, we have approval to resurface the sills and headers of the windows from the 2nd to 4th floor. And we would like to use that same recipe, resurfacing recipe for the ground floor of the building. Relating, as it relates to the neighbors, the building on the left has a brownstone colored coating at the base along with the brick above. And the building on the right, we would has coating, cementitious coating on their piers as well, and we would match the score joints of that coating on our building to create a harmonious appearance. Here is the photo of the existing condition along with the plans of the existing and proposed condition. Throughout the district, this is a very common arrangement of buildings with a brownstone colored base and masonry above. Here are some examples of buildings in the district of similar age and type. I'm moving to the rear of the building. The reason why this is a public hearing item is because we're combining masonry openings at the third floor. So the 3 punched openings, we would like to combine them into 2. And the black framing element along with the balcony are together with that combination. The 3-panel sliding door at the second floor was approved at staff level previously. So as you can see, the third floor windows, we'd like to combine from 3 windows to 2 and create a frame that is required because of a structural intervention that I'll mention at a subsequent slide. The frame is made out of a fly ash cladding material in a shaker style. And the balcony is a 2-foot cantilevered projection that would house planters that would provide privacy for the bedrooms behind those 2 new windows at the third floor. Here's the elevation of the proposed elevation and the proposed and existing photograph. This build, we're changing out the floors of this existing building from combustible to non-combustible, and for the building code, that triggers a lateral system as if the building was built today. So we're proposing to introduce a structural moment frame system at the rear of the building that's coplanar with the rear facade. And this, as you can see here, this beam right here, so this column right here. And because of this, we would need to step out 3 inches with that black frame in the previous image to provide a cladding material, insulation, and waterproofing elements to waterproof that portion of the facade around the structural elements. This is the aerial view of the block of the building. As you can see, the rear facade is located here. It's completely not visible from public thoroughfare. It's located on a very unique utilitarian block. And here's the view from the rear yard. As you can see, also surrounded by utilitarian buildings placed in
Sarah's had to step out just for a minute. Yeah, so questions.
So I have 2. One in the rear rendering, the top floor, the fire escape is still there. And then in the elevation, it isn't. I presume the elevation is correct, but I
Yes,
want to confirm that.
we're removing the fire escape.
Then the second question, on the rear rendering above the 3rd floor, there's some sort of screening.
Yeah.
And I wondered what that was and.
That is a staff level approval item as well.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes,
So
Michael.
the whole inset of the windows on the 2nd and 3rd floors is to accommodate the steel.
The projection of this black black frame is to accommodate the steel.
And what happens on the 4th floor? You don't need to take it up there?
No, the steel stops at the floor of the 4th floor.
Could you set the steel behind the wall to the left and right and not necessitate that,
The moment
infill?
frame is doing two things. It's providing a lateral structure and it's also providing the support for the fourth floor masonry
Right.
above.
Again, why couldn't you put, I mean, what's the span, 25 feet, 20 feet?
This is 25 feet.
Yeah, so it won't span across the extra few feet if you slipped it behind the little walls to the left and right there?
I think that the engineer would like the beam to be directly underneath the wall so as to take that force directly underneath. So not to create like a torsion effect with we actually looked at that and they prefer it to be coplanar with that wall. They're also tying in the columns with the brick so as to kind of make it all kind of a one element.
But you're removing the brick. You're removing the brick at the spandrel, right? Because that's taking place at the facade line. So there's no more brick left, right?
This column here is being tied into this brick.
Right.
In order to create a unified function. And I'll just skip to the section. I guess it was, is the appendix here? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So here,
right. I see it.
so this beam is acting as a support for the fourth floor. And
Right.
you're saying to move it back,
Left.
back here?
Right.
Yeah, I think then there would need to be a bigger structural intervention to account for that torsion effect, which the engineer preferred to have directly underneath the wall.
But the whole floor structure is new anyway.
The floor structure is new, yes, but this masonry
Right.
wall is existing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Jefferson.
Go to the front elevation, proposed an existing elevation. Maybe it's my eyes, the front facade. Are the two doors the same size?
These doors are not the same size. Per our reference image from the 1920s, the doors were different sizes here.
They're two different sizes.
Correct.
Oh, okay, got it, okay.
Wasn't just you.
I thought my eyes were going, okay.
All right, anyone else? All right, let's see. I'll note that there's no one in the hearing room to testify, so I'll turn it to Gregory to see if there are any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any hands raised in the remote list. If you'd like to testify, please click the raise hand button now. Noting that there are still no hands raised, I will state for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the stucco finishing of the piers at the first floor front facade, approval of the rear facade first and second floor windows and the balcony, denial of the modern interpretation of the front facade first floor commercial configuration, and denial of the black color of the rear facade structural screen, and that it be in a color with historic reference similar to the painted brick at the upper stories. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So I think to summarize, it's that they had issues with the modern design of the infill at the ground floor and the
Yes.
color at the back.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so would you like to respond to those comments?
Sure. The modern infill was approved at staff level and we used historic precedents to come to that conclusions. So I don't think it's part of this hearing. And at the rear of the building, we prefer to keep that frame color black, but we're open.
And excuse me, I had to step out for a moment, but it's not visible from a public way? Okay. All right. And then so on the front, we're not looking at the infills, we're looking at the piers, the materiality on the piers.
Yeah, similar to an earlier application, I think more work was shown or at least discussed at the community board than needed to be. So there's already been a permit issued for that garage door, which is actually closely based on the historic photographs, although it need not be for a garage door per the staff rules. Same for the door configurations. The staff actually approved that pier that's missing on the image on the left. as restorative per the historic photographs and drawings. But to do that, we approved it as brick with flush stone bands, which we believe to be the original condition. So really what you're looking at the front here is the request to build that new pier to look like the existing ones, which is stucco faced. That's not the original condition, but it's been that way a long time. So again, on the photo on the left, there are brick piers underneath all of that stucco, brick with stone bands, but it's been scored stucco for a long time and it matches a lot of the buildings that are off to the right as well. So the applicant's requesting to resurface all of the existing piers with the stucco and to make that new pier out of scored stucco. So that's why you're looking at, it's not strictly restorative work, but it would match what's there currently other than a color change.
So they're keeping the existing piers.
Yes, and they want to redo the stucco on it, which would potentially expose the underlying masonry and would be the opportunity perhaps to restore it, but they're requesting to continue the stucco look.
And they want to do a new stucco that's more of a sandstone color to relate to the sandstone and streetscape. Commissioner Ginsburg?
One other question. I understand your concern about doing probes on the stucco at the piers, but couldn't you try it and see if you're damaging the brick and if you are stopping, but if not, trying to see if you could remove it?
We can certainly try. Our hesitation was not to create a hole that we would have trouble patching later to make it look harmonious with the existing. But
Thank you.
I think it could be a fairly small section to determine whether the brick is compromised underneath. So hopefully. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
I'm an old school architect. And when I see a symmetrical facade and I see, you think, okay, is it using function to define the doors? You know, have a smaller door, so I put a smaller door in there. Why not make them equal?
it is function based. The door on the left is the primary entrance to the building, while the door on the right is a garage.
It's all based on function.
Yeah, yeah. The door on the left is the primary entrance. It's the ADA 36-inch door. And the door on the right is more of a secondary entrance.
But the reinserting that pier, which defines the width of that opening, is based on the historic drawings and has already been approved.
Correct.
So we're really looking at the material of that pier.
The dimensions were on the plan as well that we followed here.
Right. So yeah, even in the drawing, the door on the right is skinnier.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed. So we have two components before us today. One is to, the applicant is seeking to replace the stucco at the ground floor piers with a new sandstone or brownstone colored stucco. And for a pier that was previously approved by the staff to be in brick, they would like to build that in stucco to match the rest of the stucco. And then at the back, the application is to combine the window openings in this black framed window system. And the back is not visible from the rear, and there'd be no significant features being removed. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you start this one?
Sure. I mean, this is excuse me. This is a very attractive project on both sides, and I appreciate your efforts. I think the question is, you know, the piers and whether or not there should be some kind of further exploration as to whether or not the historic piers could be restored. So I would, you know, Mark had mentioned, you know, doing a probe, and I would recommend that you at least try it, because in fact, the project would look even better. I mean, it's already a very nice project, but it'll look even better. So that's my recommendation. And as I said, and the back is not visible. I happen to think it works in addition.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
I support my fellow commissioners on investigating the condition of the existing brick. I do, however, feel that the proposal is appropriate. I would accept this as a design proposal. I think that just exploring the brick condition is something you probably should do anyhow, especially since you're going to keep it as the exterior material. On the rear, I guess is not visible in any way. But yes, there, yeah, thank you. Because of that, and we have approved alterations to facades in the rear that are not visible, I think it is appropriate. I would like to hear my fellow commissioners' opinions about it. My feeling here is it just doesn't have any relationship to the existing facade in any way. And when I look at it and I think, what would make it feel better to me? And honestly, we've had this discussion many times, even today. If that black facade lived within the left and right jambs of the existing windows, I would instantly feel more comfortable, because I feel like it is a response to the existing fabric and you're infilling that whole piece. Now, because it leaves a sliver of brick on the sides, it just feels odd. I feel like it feels like it's just slapped on the facade. I think it would be much more elegant if it went into that opening size. Again, because of precedent, because of what we've looked at in the past, I think it is approvable, but I think that would be an improvement.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
Commission True on the back facade. I mean, it's a collage, and make it fit in better would be fine. And the front facade is fascinating to me because every time I walk by, I'll say, gee, that's a mistake. But it's not. It's a intellectual approach to design. So yeah, I think it's fine. I think the whole project is.
Okay. Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, as far as the fenestration in the back, I think that's fine. And I agree with my fellow commissioners that it looks a little stuck on this way, and if it could be extended to the sides just to fit in the back, I think that would work better. And in the front, I think in general it's good. I share some concern about whether the existing piers might be in condition to be used underneath the stucco, and just that there should be some probes done to see if that's possible. If it's not, this is fine. And if it is, that they would then use the brick and stone for the piers.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Thanks. I think the front is okay as is, although I think it'd be a waste of effort if, it would be a shame not to explore the possibility of there being stone there. So I think that I agree with everyone else on that. I do want to just express a concern about the degree of removal of original material on this job. It's a single family house, I believe, and we must have seen 100, 1,000, a few thousand renovations of existing brownstones, townhouses, where the necessity of removing all of the floors somehow was avoided. And I'm a little saddened by the feeling that this must happen. I'm not sure that's the case, but that's not something that we normally comment on or review. But given the fact that you're basically gutting this shell and leaving a couple of walls, the placement of the steel as a generator of a somewhat, I don't know, oddly proportioned rear facade, to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And to put a relieving angle to hold up a floor of brick is not an undue amount of torsion to place on a beam. It's done every single day all over the city. So I don't think that that's a good reason for, again, removing as much original material or having this kind of, I don't know, I find the facade, the rear facade, since it's really just sticking out 3 inches, it's not an addition like we normally see. I just as soon see the retention of more historic material. I really don't see the need for it. I'm kind of I think the back facade needs work.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with Commissioner Lufty and Commissioner Chu. I think if the steel could be moved inside the line of the existing openings, that would be good. There may be some structural reason why that can't be done, but that would make the rear facade better.
All right, Commissioner, Vice Chair Bland.
Perhaps a minority opinion. I think the front as presented is fine the way it is. Yes, a probe, sure, do it, but I'm fine with it if the probe comes back that this is what we should do. So the issue of concern is now the rear, which is completely not visible from any public view at all, which I think for me at least allows a fair amount of freedom. And to me, this is a building of a transformation of sorts. I rather like the black enfrainment. I like the change. It's fine with me. I don't personally think that we need to save all of that original rear facade material. So I think I'm fine with it as it is. Commissioner Chu has suggested maybe bringing it in. That would be fine. It would be perhaps more elegant if it were brought in. But I think this idea of bringing out the 3 or 4 inches, whatever it was, to achieve the, what he's achieving there, insulation or something, I think, is a rather, I mean, dramatic is maybe not the right word, but an elegant solution, an architectural solution. This is a designer now at work on a preservation issue. And I, as a designer myself, I sort of respect it. And I think it's an okay thing to do in what we do around this table. It's to be a designer adding a dimension, a new dimension is to me part of engaged preservation. So I can support it as it is, but bringing it in, I think would enhance it. Otherwise, I'm not sure where I am with everybody else.
Okay. All right. And I think Commissioner Chu, when you were talking about bringing it in, did you mean also not projecting, or were you just meaning making it align with the windows above? Okay.
Commissioner Bland's comment about the projections. Yeah, another point. I think the minimal projection is okay. I personally, again, designers have different reactions. I see the masonry as primary. It's the existing building, it's the solid piece of this house. To me, it's a storefront. It's being linteled, it's structurally whole, it's being linteled as a storefront. If it projects it, and when you look at it squinting, it almost feels like it's an addition that's coming out 10 feet. You just squint at it. Again, I think it's more about a relationship to the historic fabric and what is that dialogue. Infill, is it addition, which one is it?
Okay. But if we were to do an approval with modifications to align it, but still allow the 3-inch projection, you'd be okay with that?
It could be acceptable. I do realize that there are building technology issues to accommodate. There is they have to insulate it, and there's cladding, and there's steel, which wants to be in line with this. Probably a 3-wide brick wall. I'm not positive, but there's not a lot of dimension in that wall.
Okay.
But it does need to be looked at in part of the
Okay. All right. And Commissioner Ginsburg, I think you also felt it should be pulled in. You're okay with the 3-inch projection, and Commissioner Chapin, you were also kind of in the camp that thought it could be pulled in. Okay. All right. So, oh, I'm sorry. Right. My computer just turned off. Commissioner Master, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so in the front, I'm going to agree with Commissioner Lutfi and say that, in the front, I think the front is fine, but I think they should do a probe and see what they can retain. In the rear, you know, for me, it's very compelling that this isn't visible from a public thoroughfare. So I think that they are fine with this as is. But if they wanted to explore what Commissioner Chu had mentioned, I think that's fine as well. So I can find this appropriate.
Okay. All right. So I think where we are on this is that we can make a motion to approve the project with two modifications. One, that they do a probe at the existing pier just to see what that material is. And two, that they align the enfrainment for the rear openings with the jambs of the windows above. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Commissioner Lutfi, could you do that? Okay, great.
Yep. I just want to look at one thing. Okay. In the matter of docket 25-00981, 803 Greenwich Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, an Italianate style row house built in 1858. The application is to alter the ground floor of the front facade and install new infill and modify the rear facade. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I also note that a garage entrance was created at the base of the building in the early 20th century. I recommend approval with some modifications, finding that the ground floor piers were originally designed with brick and stone bands, but are now fully coated with modern stucco that may have damaged the surface of them, and the proposed recoating will not conceal any currently exposed historic fabric. That the stucco cladding will be consistent in material and character with the early 20th century stucco claddings found at the base of some commercial buildings within this historic district, including neighboring buildings within the streetscape. That the scored stucco will match the brownstone at the building's upper floor lintels and sills in terms of color and texture, helping to unify the facade. That the alterations of the rear facade will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, eliminate any significant architectural features, or diminish the overall predominance of masonry and solidity at the rear facade. And that the combination of masonry openings, the slight projection of the assembly, and the polymer material of the siding at the secondary rear facade situated within a tightly enclosed corner of the block will not detract from any significant architectural features of the building or others on the block. However, I recommend that the applicant conduct probes at the exterior sides of the piers in consultation with commission staff to see if the masonry piers can be restored. And I also recommend that the metal projection in the rear, on the rear facade, align with the window jambs above.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Nope.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
8 in favor, 1 opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, so that's approved, but please continue to work with the staff on those details. All right, that concludes our morning session. We're going to break for lunch now. We'll return at 1:30. So we will, at 1:30, we will resume with items number 7 and 8. And we will ask all members of the public to voluntarily exit the Zoom meeting at this time so that you do not have technical difficulties should you wish to return, and we've had to remove you ourselves. And Commissioner Master, you just need to turn your audio and video off, and we'll see everyone at 1 o'clock.